flames or the ashes, the spirits light up the night.
Now, we're live from the Untold Radio Network. It's Untold Radio AM with Monster Quest producer, host Doug Hajicek, and co-host Jeff Perrella Jr. Untold Radio AM is going live right now.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, look at Jeff. He's clean shaven.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Mix things up a little bit.
Hello, everybody. Now, just so everybody knows, this was the first time I did zero, not any marketing. I didn't even post our own show on my own Facebook page. Did nothing.
Really?
Zero. So if we have a decent show, it's an experiment. I want to see how many people get notified, come on their own volition.
Cool.
So it's an experiment today. Everything's an experiment. We even have a different kind of guest, don't we?
Yeah, he'd be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we have Alec. I'm going to try to not butcher his name. Aleksander. Hold on. There's my notes covered up. I'm going to butcher it. I know I am. Aleksander Czeszkiewicz. Wiz. Is it Witz or Wiz?
I'm going to guess Wits.
Witz? Okay.
I'm not sure. We'll find out.
He's got the world's longest name. Anyhow, you can see his name on there on the book cover.
Yeah.
And so we're going to explore time glitches, dimensional glitches, the paranormal, cryptozoology, lost history of humanity, consciousness, the entire universe of Déjà Vu. So we'll cover all that. And then we'll do a little live audience trivia. By the way, I got to ask you, did anybody ever email you in the last two trivia non-giveaways where I was going to mail them?
Yeah, one did. I got the one from Mary Jo. I never got the email from the other person.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're in the audience and you hear this,
yeah,
get you up your thing, and we will take care of it. Did it? With so you just gave the address. You gave the information to Alex. I take it.
Yep.
See, they kept me out of the loop.
Sophia. Actually,
that's the way it's supposed to be, I guess.
Mary Jo's definitely. I got hers and everything. Got the information forwarded. So yeah, I apologize. I forget who else we're sending it to, but yeah, please email me and we'll get that out to you.
Yeah, it was for Legend Meet Science 2 poster.
Yep, signed.
Oh yeah,
by the one and only.
Yeah. Anyhow, what else? We got that out of the way. I made a classic breakfast this morning and had a big disaster. This is just one of the things that went wrong today. Okay. So you heard about my last hard-boiled egg situation. Did I ever tell you that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
You probably did.
I put on some hard-boiled eggs. This was about 3 years ago. I put on some hard-boiled eggs. Abe Del Rio from the Minnesota Bigfoot research team called me up and said, hey, come on, I'll stop over to visit. Great, come on over, whatever. And so we're visiting. We're in deep conversation about Bigfoot. And we're out there, and all of a sudden I hear something explode in the kitchen. Loud, too. And we just ignored it. I don't know why. We were in deep conversation. Then we heard another explosion. Ignored it. Then the third one, I went, oh, crap. I got hard-boiled eggs on the stove, and all the water had evaporated. Okay. Okay. And I tried. The water
boiled out completely?
Oh, God, yes. For probably an hour it was boiled out.
That's dangerous, man.
It was dangerous. So anyhow, I had a huge mess to clean up. I didn't want a vet to know when I did, right?
Of course not.
Because when you get older, sometimes people go, you're not allowed in the kitchen anymore. You'll set the house on fire. So I didn't want that to happen. So I cleaned it up really good. And I hid all that stuff in the garbage can and whatever. And I thought I got away with it. A week goes by, 2 weeks. I didn't hear anything. And then it was like a month later, I hear, Doug, get in here. And I go in there and it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? And she goes, oh, no. What's all this exploded egg under the hood of the stove? I forgot to clean the up stuff. Well, today I had a similar thing. I thought, I'm in a really big hurry. I got all this stuff going on today. So I took a glass bowl, a ceramic bowl, buttered it inside, put an egg in there, poured a little water in there for steam, and then I trapped the steam with a paper bowl just to hold some steam and to poach my egg, right? Real quick. 1 minute, I figure. So I did that. It was great. Took off the cover, the lid. Oh, it's perfect. Perfect egg. I had a bagel toasting, put it on my perfectly toasted bagel, set it down, walked away to get cheese, and that thing exploded on my bagel. And little fragments of egg went all over my kitchen, splattered everywhere. So why would an egg explode after it's off off the stove? The yolk just boosh, and even the whites, of course, disintegrated.
Weird.
So that's my newest dumb thing I did.
Yeah,
So
I never had that happen.
So I called up and I did tell her about it.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, because it was innocent. I had the
this time.
Don't do anything with eggs in microwaves, and don't.
Oh no, microwaves! You definitely don't want to put them in the microwave. They will blow up in a microwave.
It didn't blow up in the microwave. It blew up 30 seconds after I took it out of the microwave.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to cook. If you're going to cook eggs in the microwave, you got to poke holes in the yolk. That's what causes it. Yeah, just take a toothpick or a fork, and otherwise, when you're microwaving it, the yolk.
What must get superheated or something? The sulfur.
It kind of seals up like a balloon, then it'll blow up.
Well, I think it was the sulfur in the yolk is what explodes. Goes off like gunpowder.
I know. No,
Jeff, you're not understanding. When I say explode, I mean it sounds like a fireworks going off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's nuts.
That's why you don't microwave eggs.
Well, it's out of the shell. I'm like, why not?
It's the process.
No more. I'm done with that crap.
Yep.
All right. So sorry. So I just wanted to relay my day today. That was just one of the many fun things. Do you know why just to swap the topic, when you go take a flight on an airplane, the pilot, especially in the evening, he always dims the lights.
Right.
Do you know why they do that?
I feel like I should, and I don't.
Does anybody in our audience know why? Why don't you do that? I will send something. No, it's not a contest. I'll just send it no charge for the first person that can tell me why a pilot dims the lights before they take off or land. Why? Anybody know?
I'm sure it's a safety issue, but I have no idea what it is.
We got to be specific.
Right. I have no idea.
Anyhow, here we have egg. We have egg advice. It's like putting super hot glass on ice.
Yeah. Microwaves and eggs don't mix.
Yeah. It's Brendan, by the way, is the first to answer anything. He says it's to put you in the mood.
Sure.
I love it.
That's
I love it. Anyhow, I'll give you guys a hint. There is a safety reason for it, but what is the safety? To get more light on the outside. That's not bad. That's not a bad answer. Whoop, I keep screwing up. Okay, it's not right, but it's a good answer. It's a good answer.
I like Brendan's answer.
Yeah, to get you in the mood. In the mood for what, Brendan? The mood for what?
Is that it?
Adapt darkness in case, yes. It's so your eyes can adapt to the darkness in case of an emergency.
There you go. There you go.
Can enhance safety? So, Mary Jo, once again, you want something. I'm going to send you a director's cut DVD from Monster Quest.
Cool.
Very cool. And
collector's item. Not many of those floating around.
Well, yes, it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Someday it could be worth hundreds or pennies. I don't know.
Yep, and I still have your address here, Mary Jo. So don't worry about that.
There you go, Mary Jo. You don't even have to tell us. See, it pays to come into chat. All right.
Yep.
Kenny, you were pretty damn close, but she beat you by a second. All right. What else we got here? Oh, let's just get into the news. And we're going to have a pretty kind of a little quicker show tonight because of 4th of July weekend, right?
Okay.
Everybody's got lots of stuff going on. We got this. A lot of people are on barbecues. I am.
Yeah,
what
nice.
What are you doing, Jeff? You're invited.
I'll be going up to my. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, but I'm going to be out of town. I'm going up to. I'm actually closing the store all weekend because nobody's going to be there, and I'm going up north to Hibbing with my family. So,
Oh, good. Well, good.
nice family weekend.
Perfect.
Steaks. I know Dad's cooking steaks on Friday night. I think Saturday I'm going to make a big batch of jambalaya because everybody likes that.
Oh, sweet. All right. Well,
we'll eat well.
Let's get into the news.
The news. Here we go.
Untold radio news that can be a bit weird is right now.
All right. Experts apparently are thrilled as wolves expand into new U.S. territory after a turbulent century. Obviously, wolves have been hunted to extinction, and they're coming back all over. And the biologist that obviously had a hand in this article said it's inspiring to watch this renaissance. So apparently it says experts are thrilled as wolves expand into new U.S. territory. And they are just talking about Oregon and California, which is absolutely amazing. So apparently they have a new pack called the Ashpan Pack in Shasta County and a pack in eastern Tehama County. That's like people pronouncing Anoka County, and they say, well, how do they say Anoka? I was screwed up.
I don't know.
I've
known that word forever, so I don't even know how you mispronounce it.
Anyhow, people mispronounce that. So it says here, it's I'm trying to skim. Anyhow, so they're saying the wolves are still pretty fragile. One reason they have protections, they haven't established themselves completely. So apparently there's just a pair. But you know what happens when you have a pair.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Life finds a way. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, they got a male and female. I think it's good to have wolves in the ecosystem. I think we have way too many deer.
Mm-hmm. No question of that.
All right, then a Yellowstone bison died after stumbling into near boiling water at the popular hot spring. That would not have been fun to watch. It says a large bison, after it fell into the Yellowstone National Park hot spring on Saturday, it said that this bison apparently stumbled into the scalding water of Grand Prismatic Spring, causing its death as tourists looked on. So apparently the bison fell in once and then got out and somehow went back in again. That doesn't make sense. So the animal obviously maybe enjoyed the heat. I don't know. But yeah. But apparently the video's out there. I'm obviously not going to show it, but that would be horrible.
Yeah.
And then it says next is a man humbled by interaction with a giant crocodile. Look at this thing. Just that's a monster. Yeah. Apparently, wildlife enthusiast along the lines of Steve Irwin, enjoyed a close-up interaction with a huge crocodile. Not me. On the island of Timor, and called it a humbling experience. So apparently it was a guy named Wildman Duffy, an Australian, who was also a wildlife guide. He's got a film coming out. But this is a 14.5-foot crocodile. Now, we filmed, I believe it was 22.5 feet in India for Monster Quest. And we measured it with that laser lens that I invented.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just shine this, just film it, and it puts these two dots, and those two dots never change distance. And so then by knowing the distance of the dots, we could measure. I believe it's a world record that still hasn't been broken.
That's a big crocodile, man.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, this one's 14. Can you imagine?
Saltwater crocodile. But saltwater crocodiles are aggressive as heck too.
Well, that's what we filmed in India. But could you imagine another 10 foot onto this dude?
That's a scary animal. Alligators aren't nearly as scary. Crocodiles are scary. They're
No,
aggressive and mean.
and they do these big slides. And as I remember, I don't know, somebody have to go back and watch it, but I think the slide area where the croc that we filmed was almost 5 feet wide.
Wow.
That's a huge
That's a
dinosaur.
big crocodile, man.
Yeah. So
It's
there
a
you
man
go.
eater for sure.
Yeah, do not do what he does. Those
No.
things, man, they'll get you in a second.
Yeah.
And I went to, I had to go to Rochester the other day. And of course, we got stuck behind a windmill blade. So I really got to see how big they were. They're massive. I mean, they had a caravan of like 40, 50 vehicles, police cars, just carrying one blade for a windmill.
Yeah.
And this is a incident on Maryland Highway. So I'm thinking more windmill fun. I'm very much against these things. I think they're just an eyesore.
I'm open to alternative energy, but
Oh, me
I
too.
think these windmills are a huge boondoggle.
They're too big. They're too big.
And they
Build
take so
smaller
much-
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't recycle the blades. They're just I don't think they're a good idea.
It says here, a windmill turbine blade became loose Monday morning crossing the medium on Interstate 70 in Maryland, causing a traffic to be backed up for several miles. So there you go. But that gives you the scale, that picture. People don't realize they drive through Iowa and they see all these things. Those blades are like $3 million
Yeah.
a piece.
Yeah. And
I
you
just-
can't recycle them. You can't dispose of them. They just
It's-
bury them.
Yeah, it's too big for humans to deal with.
Yeah.
So anyhow, next, scientists say that humans, it's a prediction, will reach the singularity within 20 years. And here's what they mean. Futurists have long debated the arrival of the singularity when human and artificial intelligence will merge, a concept borrowed from the world of quantum physics. American computer scientist and futurist Ray Kurzweil has long argued that the singularity would likely occur around the middle of the 21st century. And with the rise of AI, his predictions are gaining more credence. In his book, The Singularity is Near, Kurzweil doubles down on those predictions. There we go. I don't know what that's going to mean for everybody. I have no idea, but AI is just freaky.
Yeah. Would you want to merge with? I mean, would you want a computer in your brain? I sure wouldn't.
Hell no.
I don't understand why.
No.
Even that Neuralink stuff. I know that these were.
Jeff, I'd stand too close to the microwave. It would explode.
Yeah, it just I'm not comfortable with that.
I'm not either.
I don't know.
But it's coming.
Anyways.
It is. It's just coming. We can't stop all of the
Yeah.
stuff. The
It is
AI.
coming no matter what. No
I
question of that.
do wonder how it's going to affect so many jobs. I really do.
Yeah.
Robots, when they get robots down cheap to, let's say, a couple grand,
Yeah.
that's going to really change the landscape.
And it's going to happen. The price is just going to drop. The technology is just going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah. I think
It's
Amazon
coming.
announced last week that don't be freaked out if you have robots walking up your front step and dropping off a package and driving off in the truck. That's all the technology is here now to have that happen. So there you go. All right, let's do our clip picks.
Okay.
See, what do we have tonight? I'm just going to tell everybody. We have clips. Then we have audience trivia. I might be willing to send some more free things, right? With audience trivia. It's not too long. I think I only have 10 questions.
Okay.
So be prepared for that coming up. We'll do the clips quick, and then we're going to bring on our guest.
Yep. Sounds good. So you want to do some clips next?
Yeah, let's do clips.
Here we go for some clips. And ready.
Let's see. Okay, why don't everybody look at Jeff's face? You're never going to see it that smooth. Guaranteed.
No, probably not.
He'll have the rough shave
Yeah,
stuff.
probably.
Coming. Yeah.
I just had to mix things up.
But no, you look good. You look younger.
Yeah,
Don't you
I
look
guess I do.
younger?
Yeah.
Just so
I wanted
people
to get all that hair
know,
off
and
my head.
I gotta say this. Jeff is the age he could be my kid. I swear to God. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm
a lot younger than I look.
I've got a child near his age.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, clip 1, no sound. I'll come back here. I don't want to freak you out. Clip 1, no sound. Sometimes delays that you experience, like bad delays, you lose your wallet, you lose your cell phone, could save your life.
Ooh.
Did you see that? He's found a coin, stopped to pick it up, and just watch this again. Now. This is not AI. This is a real clip.
Wow.
And if they would have been just a few feet ahead, they would
Coin
not
saved
be
their
alive.
life.
Yeah, the coin
It's
did.
incredible. 100%.
So the question is, did a guardian angel leave that coin there for him?
Probably.
Yeah, that's very cool to think about. And we're going to talk about stuff like that tonight with our guest, right? Too many stories happen like this. So what force is it in the either matrix, or if you're religious, is it an angel or is it guardian angel? Well, we'll talk about all that stuff. All right, clip 2. Sound is good. All right, first, we're not going to say what this is. Go ahead and watch the clip.
This is not dirt. This is ice.
Isn't that crazy? This is hail.
Wow.
This is our corn on top of 2 foot of ice.
2 foot. Jeff, do you remember that big hailstorm we had like 15 years ago where we had snow plows? I had over a foot in my yard.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Yeah, I had to get a new roof. Yeah.
Yeah. Just crazy.
2 foot deep.
2 foot of
ice and hail.
All right, enough of that.
This is
okay. Then we have the sound is good on the next one. Water towers generally don't leak, right?
I hope not.
They don't leak. But there's a leak in this water tower coming up that's pretty strategic. It's a very strategic hole. I think it was put in on purpose. Go ahead and play it.
Nope, that's not rain.
Somebody shot our water tower, shot the silhouette of Johnny Cash in a very sensitive area.
Standing proud, holding a guitar, and emptying this 50,000-gallon water tank all over Kingsland.
I like that.
Funny.
Pretty good.
Yes. Don't get any ideas, people. Oh, my goodness. All right, clip 3. This happened on the Minnesota-North Dakota border. You remember the day, right? We had, I'm sure we have 40, 50 tornadoes in Minnesota. This was right on the border, supercell. Look at the lighting on this thing.
Wow. That's spectacular.
That is spectacular. That looks like the end of the world kind of thing. Supercell lit up by the sunset. Gosh, it's scary.
It's beautiful.
That's
beautiful, but terrifying.
That's what the cloud looked like that destroyed my house.
Really?
And I remember looking out the window. We just gotten back from a graduation party. We went to bed early, got up, and it's like 9 a.m. and Yvette goes, we have to go in the basement. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. I look out the window and see that, except without that beautiful lighting, right near our house. And next thing I saw was my entire deck lifting up in the air. It was just seconds after. And then we heard glass breaking and, all that crap. And our house got destroyed from a supercell like that.
Crazy. Yeah, that was some pretty gnarly weather. It was it's crazy.
Yeah, it's not fun. Clip 4, it has to do with bad weather. It's a view of a tornado forming from underneath. So it's just a funnel cloud, but it's quite interesting. Go ahead and play it. There's no sound on this clip.
Right.
And you can see that rotation right there, right above the flag. And you see that above your house. It's quite scary.
Yeah, no kidding.
Gosh. Just a big drain. All right. I just thought that was a really cool clip. I'd never actually seen anything like that from that angle. Looking
It
up
almost doesn't
in-
look real. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
There you go. All right. Clip 5 is a really cool clip. It is an air show. It's a little longer clip, but it's an air show from both perspectives, both in the aircraft and from the crowd. And it's quite spectacular. It's worth watching. It's a quick clip, but then they're going to show it from inside those things. Didn't they show it Friday?
No, that's the clip I got.
What? What am I imagining it?
Probably.
I must have. No, I didn't. It must have been the next clip or something. And I didn't load, clip 5A. I didn't load it. Oh, well.
Oh,
It was cool. I mean, the planes are like 3 inches apart.
yeah.
And you see it out the window and you're like, oh my God, these people really risk their life for these air shows.
There's a great documentary about a new documentary, newish.
Yeah.
Blue Angels.
I haven't seen it yet, but I did. It's on Netflix,
Oh.
I believe.
I think it's either Netflix or Prime. I can't remember which.
Or
but it's
Amazon.
incredible.
Okay.
Those people got guts, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
they do. And
smokes.
there are quite a few accidents at air shows. I have to say that.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of scary to go to them because if there's an accident, you're going to be on the ground and it could hit you.
Yeah.
It's a worry. Anyhow, clip 6. Sound is good. This is a case where if you live up in moose country, a moose may wander into your fire station. And the moose is all chill. It really is. And he just leaves all chill. Watch this. It's pretty crazy.
It's a pretty small one, actually.
Yeah, it's a young moose.
Yeah.
But still, you just don't expect to
No.
be working on your fire truck and then you see a moose standing there. There he goes. He's moving. He looked around though good. It's all calm. I mean, he's really chill.
Yeah.
Look at this.
They're not afraid of anything. That's one of the few animals with no natural predators.
You're kind of
just
right
not afraid
about
of
that.
anything.
Yeah. Yep. I got charged once when I was in a canoe. And the guy that I was with was really freaked out. I wasn't freaked out. I was just like, let's paddle away. And he's like, no, that thing could still get us and drown us. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're not afraid of anything.
I just kept filming. I was like, yeah, whatever. But it was an exciting moment. Okay, clip 7. The sound is good.
This
No need to
tribe
be
walks
tall
above
in
the
this
ground
village.
every single day just to stay alive. In Ethiopia's Omo Valley, the Bana tribe has turned this into a way of life. Surrounded by dangerous snakes, wild animals, and marshy terrain, they've mastered the art of walking high above the ground on wooden stilts, some reaching over 10 feet tall. Even young children are taught to balance and move with skill across rough landscapes.
All
What
right,
began as a survival tactic has grown into a proud tradition.
That's pretty cool.
That's the way to go, huh? I think we should do that. Jeff, we should try
No.
stilts. Well, I'd like to see you on 12-foot stilts.
No.
No?
Not only am I not athletic, I'm not real big on height.
Have you ever done, I've done stilts,
Yeah, I
like
have when I was a kid,
smaller
younger.
ones,
Yeah.
and it's freaky. I couldn't imagine being up on a
Takes some getting used to, that's for sure.
12-footer. Okay, but I guess it works. It keeps them from getting snake bites.
Yeah.
All right, clip 9, the sound is fine. This is really interesting.
Oh, you skipped clip 8.
Oh, duh. Oh, this. Yeah, it's a funny clip. Okay. This is the main reason And obvious reason, you do not want to apply your own sunscreen. This is funny. Go ahead and play it. There's no sound on this clip.
Right. Yep. That's the issue right there.
I quit wearing sunblock because I did it once when I was in Florida. And if you don't get it uneven, ooh, it's quite attractive.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's like I quit wearing all that crap. Anyway.
My dad fell asleep outside one time with his hand on his chest and so he burned his chest except for a plain white handprint.
Nice. Nice. What else we have? By the way, we've got a couple of little spots to play on some conventions. Don't let me forget. After we're done with our clips, we'll do that.
2 more. We've got 2 left.
Okay.
Number
9. Sound is good. I love this clip because it shows a possible symbiotic, undiscovered behavior.
A pair of unlikely friends were seen strolling together in the wild. Take a look at this video posted on social media by the LA County Sheriff's Station in Altadena. You can see a bear and coyote hanging out and developing a close bond. The Sheriff's Station captioned the post saying, quote, "When you and your coworker finally take that lunch break walk you've been talking about all week."
The lunch break walk. Well, he might become his.
We got the idea.
That's really cool.
But I've always had the theory that Bigfoots hang out with coyotes on occasion. They help each other. If it can do it with a bear, it can certainly do it with a Bigfoot, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. Proof. All right. Clip 10. Sound is good. This is definitely a new fear unlocked. Sand looks innocuous, but it's not. You won't believe what you're going to see.
Ajá. Oh, son chiquititos. Sí. Cuéntale cómo se llaman aquí. Wow. They don't bite?
No.
Oh.
It's crazy, yeah.
No thanks.
Isn't that crazy? And that little, I mean, it's what, a couple of gallons of sand? It was a lot of those little, what did he call them? Did he call them something? Sand? I used to catch sand fleas that way for fishing, but we wouldn't get that many. Maybe you're lucky to get one in a scoop, but those things are creepy.
All right, should we play we got our
let's do that, and then we'll do audience trivia, and I think our guest is in the back room, and we will bring Alexander on. Yeah.
First up, we got the Crossing Realms Conference. Here we go.
Crossing Realms Conference is coming this September 19th and 20th to the Eagleton Civic Center in Richmond, Missouri. Tickets to this landmark event are on sale right now at Eventbrite. The powerful speaker lineup will cover topics from Bigfoot, UFOs, and aliens, so you will not want to miss attending this amazing 2-day inaugural event. Again, that's the Crossing Realms Conference, this September 19th and 20th at the Eagleton Civic Center in Richmond, Missouri. Please mark your calendar and get your tickets before they vanish. Space is limited.
Yeah, I'm hoping to go to that one.
And then we'll play the New York one.
Yep, here we go.
Coming this fall to New York, the first annual New York Bigfoot Conference on October 3rd and 4th, 2025 at the Holiday Inn Conference Center in Johnstown, Gloversville, with an amazing speaker lineup including Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Cliff Barrickman, Renee Holland, Adam Davies, and Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, with Mark Deworth as Master of Ceremonies. The event is hosted by Loretta Collins and Mark Deworth. Tickets are on sale right now for the New York Bigfoot Conference. Don't miss it. Visit NewYorkBigfootConference.com for more information.
That's really a cool lineup. I hope they have a good success there.
Yes, and cool. Loretta Collins is putting on the New York Bigfoot Conference along with Mark Deworth, who puts on the Ohio Bigfoot Conference.
Yeah.
So it should be a really cool event. All right. I think what I'm going to do is send free. I'm not giving away anything. I'm going to send free another director's cut And I literally do. I just have a few of these things, and I don't need them. And what am I ever going to do with them? So we'll send them, and they're pretty cool. I mean, they're cool to have. It's kind of a thing that you can cherish, or you can auction off on eBay, maybe.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want with it.
Pretty cool.
I don't care. But anyhow, so one of these questions, I am going to call it on first person to answer right. I'll send them that DVD.
Okay.
All right. This is on Canada's forests. The first question. All of these are forest questions or tree questions. The first one's on Canadian forests. So, all right. Canada's forest is big, right? We all know that. But how big is it? Is it bigger than India? A. Is it B, 40 times bigger than Lake Superior? C, bigger than 30,000 Disney Worlds? Or all of the above, D? Did you imagine 30,000 Disney Worlds?
Canada's forests are huge. I've flown over that. It's crazy how big they are.
So let's see what people are answering here. We've got Flat Rockland D. We've got Greg Olson D. A lot of D's. It's actually correct. D is correct.
Yeah, that was my guess too.
Sorry, Joanne. It's a good guess. It's all of the above. All right. How many trees are there per Canadian citizen? How many trees exist for each citizen who lives in Canada? Is it A, 1,238, B, 9,000, C, 3,200, or D, 6,020? Let's see here. Oh my goodness. Who? It's just crappy because there's no line between these answers. So I don't know if they're answering the one. Oh my God. I forgot about that problem. I didn't think this through, Jeff.
Well, I think this was the first answer to that.
Which one? B?
Right there. Joanne said B.
Oh, good job. It is B.
Yep.
9,000 trees per person in Canada.
Yep.
That's a lot of trees. I wonder how many acres it would take to hold 9,000 trees.
A lot. Think of the oxygen that produces.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
9,000 trees. I'm going to guess 200 acres.
I don't even know. That's a lot of trees.
That's a lot of trees. I'm just going to guess 200 acres. I do not know the answer. Maybe one of you smart people in chat could figure it out. You know, I mean, you can only get so many trees in a 10 square foot area. So how many acres would 9,000 trees take up? All right. Question number 3. What makes Canada's forests so important? Is it A, they provide habitat for plants and animals? Is it B, they store huge amounts of carbon? C, they provide more jobs than any other resource industry? D, they fight flooding? Or E, all of the above? Swope B, Greg B. I think you guys are answering this one. And it is William Robinson got it. E.
Yep.
All of the above. Yeah, it's kind of hard to put any one thing. The other thing that's funny, not once did it mention oxygen.
Yeah.
They just mentioned the carbon. And they mentioned storing carbon, but it also converts carbon, CO2, into oxygen. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Number 4, forests help to A, increase biodiversity, B, decrease biodiversity. What do forests do? Do they increase biodiversity or decrease? So it's A or B. I love it. Squatch Mama just says toilet paper. She is right. And we're never going to stop logging as long as we need toilet paper. That is a fact.
Oh, looks like John looked up your 16 to 40 acres, depending on the trees.
Oh, I said 200. I was way off. Good
You were
job,
off.
John.
Yeah, thanks, John, for looking that up.
Thank you. Good job. All right. We got is.
I think
yes.
this was the first A.
Okay. Yes. There we go. All right. So, and the answer is forests provide habitat for many organisms, and they're home to lots of different species. Remember, the more variety of organisms in a habitat or ecosystem, the more biodiverse it is. Biodiversity is very important and helps keep the ecosystem healthier and more resilient.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this next one, first person to answer it, I will send them free of charge a director's cut DVD for Monster Quest. All right. Out of my personal collection. All right. So number 5, name the process that occurs beneath the ground underneath a forest. Is it photosynthesis? You say that word.
Photosynthesis.
Yeah, that's it. I get all booked up on that back end. B, decomposition, or C, respiration. First one to get that one right. So it's A, B, or C.
All right.
John says that's why we keep them around. Yes.
There we go.
So got it.
Poncho.
And Jeff knows the answers. So yep. Poncho, we just need you to send Jeff your address, and we will.
I'll type my email address into the chat here.
And they all have my signature on it. So
yeah, please send me an email with your mailing address, and we'll get that out to you. Here we go. Jeff P at untoldradioam.com. I just typed it in the chat so y'all can see it.
Yep, and you get no choice in what episode you get.
Yeah. Pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing to get for free.
All right. Where are we at? That was number 5. And then we've got number 6. As we know, greenhouse gases contribute to climate change. Yeah, we don't know that. We don't know any such thing. Well, whatever. Which greenhouse gas do trees help remove from the atmosphere? And yes, they do remove greenhouse gases.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But I've always been a strong believer the sun has the biggest effect on our weather.
The climate?
Climate, yes. So is it A, methane, B, carbon dioxide, or C, nitrous oxide? That's an easy one, I think. A lot of right answers. Yeah, it's carbon dioxide. It says carbon dioxide is one of the most abundant. I like how why do they call it a greenhouse gas? It's a gas. When trees perform Jeff, finish it.
Photosynthesis.
Yes, they suck it up and store it, and it removes it from the atmosphere. We all breathe. That's what we breathe out. All right. Why are trees good for storing carbon?
Why are trees good at storing carbon? Okay.
Yes. And the answers are trees are about, it's A, trees are about 50% carbon. B, trees live for a long time. C, trees rot slowly, particularly in cool climates like Canada. D, all of the above. So, don't you have any sound effects for that damn? No?
I do.
You do?
Somewhere.
I'll make my whole day if I...
let's see here.
There is a sound effect for that? Oh, that's fine.
I forgot about that. Let's see here. Yes.
It's fine. We're good. I just wondered. Yeah, there you go. Where does that go?
Just got to tell me to stop it because I can't hear it on my end. But
Oh, that's right. You can't. Yeah, I know. Jeff's got some issue in the
I
studio.
got a weird glitch with my audio. I can hear talking. I can't hear music. I have no idea why.
All right. Question 8. What is the process of storing carbon called? Is it A, carbon sequestration, B, cellular respiration, or C, carbon building? What is the process for storing carbon called? Carbon sequestration, cellular respiration, or carbon building? A. Yeah, William got it right. Right there. A. Carbon sequestration. That's a word we don't hear much, do we?
I don't hear that one every day, no.
You hear that about juries, don't you?
Yeah, sequestered, yeah.
Yeah, that's about the only time you ever hear that word. All right, 9. Last one. Carbon sinks are things that store carbon. So a carbon sink, I know that's probably a new term to a lot of people. Carbon sources are things that release carbon. Which do you think forests are? Carbon sinks or carbon sources? A, carbon sink, B, carbon sources. I think Greg said B. No. A. No. William got it right. Carbons. Or no, Loretta got it right first. Damn. It's a carbon sink.
Smart people.
There we go. There. Now you know everything you need to know about carbon, apparently.
All righty. So we're ready to bring on
Yeah.
Alexander.
Let me read Alexander's bio. I'm going to try to shorten it a little bit. So Aleksander Czeszkiewicz, and we're going to have him tell us how to pronounce his name, is a Polish researcher, author, content creator, and specializing in ancient civilizations, lost history, consciousness, and the mysteries of the universe. He wrote his first book, Deja Vu, which is up on the screen. It's called Has Everything Already Been? It's a great title. And he wrote that book at 17.
Wow.
450
Impressive.
pages, Jeff.
I need to, progress in my book is slow. It's hard to write a book. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. He has since gained international recognition for his thought-provoking work, a frequent guest on global podcasts. And we're not a global podcast.
Sure we are.
No, we're not. We're just
we're available everywhere on the planet.
We're little
The
old
internet.
Untold Radio. I'm joking.
The internet's everywhere. We're global.
Well, his are like all over Europe. He does a lot of them all over Europe.
Yeah.
And these podcasts, Alexander explores topics like Atlantis, ancient texts, esoteric knowledge, captivating audiences with his holistic approach to uncovering humanity's forgotten past. And I'm going to squeeze him on other topics.
Yeah.
Because I know he thinks about all sorts of other topics. So we're going to kind of meander all over. So with that, let's bring Alexander on.
Okay.
All the way.
All right, and welcome Alexander all the way from Poland. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, so what time is it there, Alexander?
Almost 3 a.m.
3 a.m. Oh, geez. So did you go to bed and get up, or did you just stay up?
No, I just stayed and I'm energized, so that's no problem.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Well, that's what I do. Sometimes I have more energy if I don't even go to bed. Sometimes. So I would imagine you have thought about every mystery that's out there, and there's a lot of them. UFOs, the whole mystery of what in the hell space is, cryptozoology. What are all these things, monsters and creatures people see that fit no rational explanation, like dogmen and things? Time glitches. things where you set something down and you set it there and it's gone. These mysteries that I've just kind of mentioned, are these things that you dwell on and think about a lot?
Yeah, sure. However, I would say specialize. However, it is still a very, very broad topic, mostly in history, however, also in the universe as a whole. So I want to delve into the biggest mysteries because from my own experience being at school and doing all these things that are not very important because plenty of people did them before, like some maths calculations and so on, I want to go into the unknown and go into the topics that are still to be discovered, are still to be explored, and are still to be seen how things are. So I am interested, as you mentioned, in all of the topics. However, I am in the biggest questions about the universe. What even this reality is, how it works, how it happened to be, how it appeared, how it started. Can we use this information? Maybe there is some information lost in ancient texts from lost civilizations like Atlantis and so on. So I want to put this knowledge into practicality also. So maybe we can use, for instance, for some kind of new technology, like we hear about anti-gravity or free energy. Who knows? Maybe there is some kind of free energy. So
do you think anybody wrote about this? What the reality really is? Do you think there's any text that will be uncovered that hasn't been? And can you tell me what text kind of exists now that hint towards great knowledge?
You mean, of course, ancient texts or very, very old texts, right?
Yeah, ancient, new. Is there anything that we have uncovered from, like, let's talk about ancient first, that really is the most revealing about the mysteries that you write about?
I think most of us have seen the movie Matrix, in which the whole reality is some kind of simulation or a video game. And it is really revealing because if we read texts like Gnostic texts from late antiquity or the Hindu texts, some of which are much older than even the Gnostic texts, we will see that this framework of the reality being some kind of illusion, of our reality being something much bigger, is emerging both in the Western world and both in the Eastern world. So I think this is the biggest wow, because even the producers of the Matrix movies were heavily into spirituality, Gnosticism especially. And I do not agree with all the stuff that was portrayed in this movie or within the Gnostic texts or other texts. However, I want to show that there are so many similarities in all of these texts, and we can actually create a map, like connect the dots of conspiracy theory. I often laugh about it because we can see that from one side, we see that ancient texts from different cultures, different time periods all around the world are saying similar things.
Okay, well, let me stop you right there just for a second. I hate to interrupt you, but is there any ancient texts that discuss a possible matrix?
Yes, there are ancient texts. Maybe I'll start with the older ones.
Okay.
So in the Hindu thought, later Hindu thought from the medieval ages, especially the Upanishads, which were interpretations of the older texts, but all the Upanishads done during, let's say, plus or minus, because it's a long span of time, about 800 years, if I'm correct. So during the medieval times, interpretations of the ancient Hindu texts in the Upanishads, and the famous older one, which is later interpreted, the Mahabharata, which is one of the oldest and longest epics of all time. And actually, we do not even have an entire thing, because it would be the whole bookshelf of books. We only have shortened versions of the Mahabharata. So already in Mahabharata, which is a very, very old text, also the dating of the Mahabharata is different according to different scholars. However, already in Mahabharata, in ancient times, there is a mention that our reality is some kind of illusion. But when we think of it in Matrix terms, that, oh, it's an illusion, maybe we should escape, and so on and so on. In Mahabharata, it is more about understanding the reality, that maybe it is to some extent, we'd say, illusory, but it is illusory just because it is. So, like a game, I can play a game on my PC, and is it worse because it is illusory? Maybe, of course, it's worse than my human experience.
Is the word illusion similar to us being in some kind of simulation? Who do you think, is there a person that you could name in past history, whether it's ancient history, that maybe had a handle on what, like Elon Musk says, that it's a good chance we're living in a matrix now? Can you actually name somebody from back then?
I think personally not, or maybe if we consider Mahabharata, and there are plenty of characters in Mahabharata, maybe they were real or not. However, yes, in Mahabharata there are mentions, and during the peak of Mahabharata, because Mahabharata has its peak at the middle during the Battle of Kurukshetra, at this peak, God Arjuna shows up and tells people about this illusion of reality. So we can pinpoint that it was Arjuna and talking with others. However, these may be mythical characters, so it wasn't like a character like Plato or Socrates, not. However, Plato also was a big proponent of some kind of illusion of reality.
Really?
Yes, he was mentioning the world of ideas, because imagine now, we have the world around us, and if we zoom infinitely enough onto anything, like something on my desk, let's say, for example, if we zoom infinitely enough, we'll see that, for instance, circle wouldn't be a circle because it would be sharp, and it wouldn't be circle if we really zoom into it. The same, for instance, on our like laptops or PC, whatever we are using, smartphones, we have pixels on our screens. And the more pixels we have, the more circle or something can be. But if we zoom into it, it isn't. And Plato thought, however, in our minds, we can actually imagine perfect circular stuff. I can imagine circle or a ball, and I can, in my own imagination, zoom into it, and I can still see perfect sphere or perfect circle. And that led later to plenty of other interpretations that maybe this world of our matter, because it is imperfect, may be some kind of illusory reality. And Plato actually partially inspired later people, like the Gnostic people I mentioned, later a few hundred years after Plato, to interpret that, oh, this reality is bad, it's an illusion, because in our mind we can see perfect stuff. However, on Earth we may never create perfect circle, it will always be imperfect. And they later interpreted in the Matrix term, because Matrix is was heavily inspired by the Gnostic thought, that okay, this reality may be bad reality, maybe it is hell, maybe some kind of bad entity created it and we are in a prison. There are plenty of conspiracy theories nowadays of prison-like planet, and not many people know that it all is from the late antiquity, ancient times of the Gnostic people, who interpreted Plato, who interpreted, of course, stories of the Bible, and they were the first to point out that, wait a minute, if we compared the Old Testament or the New Testament, which of course wasn't then old and new, however, if we compare these accounts and these accounts, we'll see that the God of the Bible is a little bit worse and harsh to humanity at the beginning of the stages, and then the God, for instance, as appeared by Jesus Christ, is much more loving and benevolent, but the God of the Old Testament is bad. So they interpreted that actually the God of the Old Testament is some kind of bad entity, Yahweh, Yaldabaoth, Satan, later of course, and maybe we are imprisoned. And they created all of theories, conspiracy theories, genealogies. Even they said that actually Noah was an agent of this God, that this evil Satan, Yahweh, God, actually told Noah that if he will be, of course, doing everything Yahweh is telling him, he will be all right and his lineage will be ruling everything. And this is a conspiracy theory about also Jewish people, but I don't want you to be cancelled here. However, you see how it all started, and it was inspired, so we can say that Plato was into illusion of reality, and then Gnostics were reinterpreting it with other knowledge, like the book of Genesis, Old Testament, and stuff like that.
Well, Alexander, what is your belief? Have you come to a conclusion what our daily reality is? Is it Do you believe it's an illusion or a matrix, or it's generated as we view it, as we experience it? It doesn't really exist until we go there. Is that kind of a conclusion you've made?
I'm not into the theory that it is some kind of computer simulation or some kind of simulation in this kind of thing, or evil simulation created by some evil gods. I think that it is all natural from, let's say, the source, God the creator, or something like that. And just because if we think from philosophical perspective, metaphysical, so beyond physical perspective, I actually analyzed plenty of world cosmologies, cosmogonies, etc., ancient texts, and lots of them speak about the primeval thing, because what we think, why there is something rather than nothing? Why? Maybe there could be nothing, but there exists something. So we can go from the basics, like existence, non-existence, and we will see that actually some kind of division is necessary for us to have any form, because if we have infinity, it's sometimes hard for us to grasp.
Can you back up just a little bit on that concept? Did you say the word opposite?
Opposite or division?
Division, okay, division. Like hot and cold. Hot can't exist without cold.
Yes,
cold can't exist without hot.
Yes, however, this is in our terms. However, let's think of everything, like infinity, eternity, whatever we want. Like everything that there is. I don't know why I'm alone here.
No, we're here. We're here.
We're still here. We're just
okay,
to
sorry. I was thinking it's my internet.
We're just giving you the floor.
Okay, imagine everything that there could be existing, like infinity, eternity, etc. If it was like that, infinite potential, everything is and everything is not. So without form, without division, okay, let's carve a human being, for instance, let's carve a square, let's carve a circle. We wouldn't have form. So we need, and it was a very basic cosmological thinking of, we would say primitive people, however, they were, I think, very advanced if they thought like that, because whether we check out the Genesis story of the vision of heaven and earth, and later New Testament stuff that speaks about source and initial division into two. And just as in our cells that are multiplicating, like the baby is being created, so there's one cell, 2 cells, 4 cells, etc. So it is dividing itself into many, creating then later, at a later stage, millions, billions, multiplications later, a human baby. So the same would be with our universe, that if we go from the beginning, that let's say, okay, there is something, not nothing, because we exist, so there is something. So imagine everything without form. So then we need to bit by bit divide into 1 and 2. So the famous yin-yang symbol, or masculine and feminine.
Right. Well, nothing can exist. If you take nothing, divide it in 2, you now have something, correct?
Not nothing, but everything. Like you have an entire sheet of paper, which is blank. But if you cut it in 2, you have 2 things, and then you cut it in 4, and the more you cut, imagine you have only this sheet of paper. You cut it, and then you can create some form, like some castle from these bits of paper.
Okay, well, let's dwell on opposites for a little while, just for a little while. Electricity is very inert. If you just grab the positive pole of, I don't care how high the voltage is, but the moment you grab the negative pole, now you're gonna electrocute it. So electricity doesn't even really exist until you have positive and negative. Is that kind of what you're saying or not? If not, explain more.
I think it is to some extent analogy. However, I do not think that electricity itself works like that, because I have been not studying. However, in high school I had advanced physics, and electricity isn't working that there is plus or minus. It is all our human terms, and it is much more, even we do not know 100% how it works right there into it deeply. So it is nice analogy.
No, we know how to use it, but we don't really know what it is. I agree.
Yes. Yeah, we can harness it, but we don't,
nice thing that if there was 0, there wouldn't be anything. We need the opposite. So first, divide everything, like eternity into half, or infinity into half, then make further division. the cosmogonies of gods are symbolical of that. So first there is, because we think that our ancient ancestors were primitive, there were polytheists, so they believed in many gods. No, if we take a look at, for instance, ancient Sumerians, if we take a look at ancient Egyptians, ancient Hindu people, there is always some kind of source that people couldn't describe because it was so broad and vague. And then from this source, there is the first division into two gods, let's say, metaphorically. And then from these gods, we have all these hierarchies and lineages of gods. So this is, I think, a metaphor of how our reality was initially divided. So as I mentioned, so everything or nothing, we do not know how even describe this state. Then first division, let's say masculine, feminine, plus or minus, and then further and further division that led for us to be a form, because we see now we are with form because there are plenty of laws of physics at work, plenty of different materials, components, atoms, electrons, etc. But if we had like only 10, for instance, 10 forces or 10 particles, our world would be much more limited. So if we want to experience, let's say, such an immersed reality like that, like this one, we need plenty of these divisions from everything that is connected and everything that is eternal. The same with, for instance, video games, that, you know, the more advanced video game, we can still see that the video game is a video game. However, maybe with plenty of supercomputers, some immense technology that would be into our neurons, brains or something, we would probably not be able to distinguish it. And I think that you mentioned glitches in the Matrix, synchronicities, Deja Vu is all about.
But have you ever experienced a glitch of any type in your life, Alexander?
Yes, I would say maybe not like glitch, like this Mandela effect, that something is total. No, I experienced the Mandela effect, so something that we thought was this way is the other way, and
it's shifted, like a shift in the timeline.
Yes, and because it was about I was
dimensional.
A kid. Yes, I was a kid, and it was about, I would say, a video game, and in this video game I was always turning right into some corridor, let's say, and then I think 5 or 10 years later I see the same game. Wait, it's on the other side, and then I check YouTube because what the hell is going on? I'm checking the YouTube, some old gameplays like 2006 or something, I don't remember, and it is all the other side. So I once experienced this type of glitch. However, I would say other type of glitches would be more of spiritual nature, like synchronicities, like some remote
coincidences.
Yes, coincidences, or hearing something like, you know, clairaudience, clairvoyance, so hearing something. And I would say, you know, what was also very important was what initially sparked my spirituality, because I would say that for most of my early years I was an atheist or agnostic. So I wasn't that heavy atheist that, oh, God doesn't exist. No, I was that, you know, maybe there isn't God, there isn't something beyond the material physical realm. However, what initially sparked and I would say spiritually awakened me were prophetic dreams. And these were crazy, like when I was in the middle high school. These were crazy. However, from my own experience, I see that there were mostly never about big things, because we think, oh, prophetic dreams, maybe I will have the lottery ticket number, or I will have the big thing, like who I will marry or where I will go travel, etc. No, these are so minor things that I was shocked that they even happened. But I think it was for me to also prove that these things are beyond mere coincidences and mere hallucinations, because they were so minor, insignificant. They were so, because of that, improbable, that, you know, meeting actually at this part of the day, like it was evening, at this corner of the street, this specific person, you know, at the same place, moment of this long street, you know, it was so heavy, but it was random. It wasn't even significant, as I mentioned. So,
well, okay, but let's backtrack a little bit to things people can relate to, and the Mandela effect is one thing most people can relate to that. Do you think the Mandela effect is simply a multi-dimensional universe, and we shift over a little bit and everything's similar in each dimension but a little different? Is that kind of where you've landed or not?
I think it's connected with that, but it isn't 100% that.
Okay.
Even the multiverse theory that there are some parallel timelines, parallel universe, is all theoretical. And I was researching, I have plenty of books, these are real. I was reading like crazy when I was like in the middle high school. That's how I wrote my book at 17, because I was reading so much, so it was easy for me. However, I was very into physics, because in order to find the biggest questions about the universe, I also needed to know the physics, at least the basics, and what is going on. So I was into this multiverse theories, string theories, plenty of different dimensions, and I would say that multiverse theory is first just an interpretation of an effect in quantum physics.
What if
that
all
can be
physics?
interpreted.
Yeah, but what if all the things that we think of as physics are actually wrong? Is that
Maybe.
possible too? Is that even a possibility that we've gotten everything wrong? You know,
Well,
what they teach you in school is just plain old wrong.
It's also
Yes.
possible that physics are only consistent in certain places in the universe. In a different spot in the universe, the physics could be very, very different. That's kind of a pretty
Yeah,
common
and that's
theory.
another.
Yes, I totally agree, and I would explain, because I was also into philosophy of science, because I wanted to understand what science really is. And you know what science actually is, because plenty of people think, oh, science is going for truth or something like that in these matters. No, science is only a tool to measure and explore the material reality, because science at its core have its own assumptions. And I would go back into this plain Canva assumption that, let's say we want to discover, I want right now to discover the whole world. So I would make not many assumptions. I wouldn't make plenty of assumptions that only black exists, only white exists. No, I would say, okay, I see things, so things probably exist, or maybe not, maybe it's an illusion, but you know, I would only assume that things exist, for instance, and that it is. However, science, if it wanted to go for the truth, would also have only a little assumptions that are needed to explore the world. So we need to assume that the world exists. However, science has plenty of limiting assumptions, like the naturalism, or either called materialism, which says that it says officially like that, all the natural phenomena have natural causes. So what it means that everything that is natural, like me, you, like these things that are all around me, has natural cause. So there was no supernatural cause. There was no God. Let's say there was no angel giving me something or changing anything, right? Any spiritual thing. No, everything is natural. And it implicates that everything is only natural. So it's only matter and its interactions. There is nothing beyond matter. However, if I wanted to know the truth, I wouldn't limit myself that only natural things exist, only matter exists. Of course not. So it is one of a few assumptions that I personally do not agree with, which shows that science, actually, it shouldn't have monopoly on knowledge like it tries to have with all the debunking conspiracy theories and stuff like that. No, because science is only limited within the domain of natural world, which means that, okay, we can say that it's a fact that there is something we call matter, something physical material. So science only applies to that, nothing beyond. So anything spiritual, and science says, oh, there is no spirituality. No, only within its paradigm, within its, instructions, there is no spiritual. However, science shouldn't even talk about spiritual, shouldn't even say, oh, spiritual doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. No, because it is beyond the domain of science.
What about things that really haunt, even scientists are haunted by gravity? It's such a strange force that, you hear all of these possible explanations, but, I've come to the conclusion they have no idea what gravity is. None. What are your thoughts on gravity, Alexander?
Actually, imagine we know so many things about our world, our reality and everything. We have the computers who can talk from the other ends of the world and so on. We have quantum things. We have all these theories, all this physics and, all this technology. However, nowadays, the biggest thing that physicists are trying to search is to combine gravity, theories about gravity, mostly Einstein's ones, with quantum physics, because they are
Right.
both correct. So, but where is the connection? Because quantum physics is within, it applies to the fields of very, very microscopic, and of course gravity applies to the big, like planets, solar systems, entire universe, galaxies, etc. So where is the connection? So
Well, it
actually
also
still
it also
defined.
applies when I drop a wrench on the floor. You know, I mean, do you think that anybody today on a scale, if you could draw a ruler, you know, an imaginary ruler, where would we be on that ruler with our knowledge of gravity or our knowledge of any of the universe? Where would you gauge it? Because somebody does know everything. You know, somebody knows everything. And it could be you. I'm not saying, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe you're the guy that...
The more I learn, the more I see I do not know so many
I know,
things.
but where do you think humanity, you know, humanity as a whole lies on a yardstick?
I
Where
would
are we
say
at?
about 3 or 2.5 out of 10.
Okay, out of 10 what? 10 inches?
1 to
feet?
10, so 2.5.
2.5, okay. So
Something
about
like that.
A quarter of the way there.
No, 2.5. So about 2.5%.
No,
Out of 10.
I
Out of
mean
25%.
25
Yeah.
to 30%.
Oh,
One quarter.
okay.
2.5 out of 10, yeah.
All right, I'd buy into anything. I just think we're still quite low on the, you know, on the scale.
But
on
still,
our
we have
knowledge.
all the things of modern world. I think we are really into this material part of research, and we are good at making technology out of matter, at least to some extent. So I'd say 2.5, 3, so 25 and 30%.
Do you think AI is going to increase that number exponentially in the next 10 years?
I don't think so much. I think that, okay, still within our domain, it will evolve, it will help and get us better results. However, you know, if we create AI with our paradigm, because AI is based on our knowledge.
Good point.
Actually,
It's
we
limited
even
by our knowledge.
say neural networks, you know, we model things that we want it to be closer and closer to humans, so it would be limited actually to the same extent as us, and it will be, I think, even more limited than a human being, because see, human beings have a lot of potential to actually, you know, go out of the comfort zone, evolve and adapt, let's say, to the information, because not only to threats but also to information we can adapt. So
But, you
I
know,
think that AI is limited.
I once in a while, Alexander, I'll fantasize about what AI might do in the future, and I think, what if it figures out how to communicate with the dead? Or what if it all on its own, and it suddenly starts really figuring things out? Is that even I know you guys are saying it's limited by our knowledge, but what if it breaks through that somehow?
Yes, I think that it can, of course, break through. However, still, if all the science, because we have to be clear, all the science is based on just the material, physical part of the reality. So I think AI would be limited too in that way. And actually, even there is now Nobel Prize winner Sir Roger Penrose, who actually shown mathematically, theoretically, it is still a theory, but it is logical, and not many people are saying that it is BS. No, they say that, yes, this is actually quite convincing, that AI without some kind of unknown to us for now quantum effects that may appear in our consciousness, because there was some research about, for instance, microtubules, some kind of things in our brains and our neurons in our cells that may have some quantum effects beyond just physical, like Newtonian mechanics, not mechanical, but some quantum. Without that, AI would never be conscious, and maybe this something beyond matter, which is still unknowable for us, may be the key to consciousness. And I think that at the same rate, you know, how AI would go back to that. It can imagine with all the processing units, like it can imagine perfect, like one-to-one copy of, let's say, your grandmother or my grandmother. However, it would be only a copy, and it would be AI generated. It wouldn't be real at all. And I think that it would be closer for us with our, let's say, psychic abilities to do some kind of extra sensor perception, which I think is beyond matter, and then access that.
But I just wondered whether you would be surprised if all of a sudden, through quantum AI or quantum computing, that suddenly there isn't some really weird things that stuns mankind with what it does.
Who knows? You know, mankind was
don't
also
think
stunned
so.
by Wright
You don't think
brothers,
so? I think-
etc.
I think we're going to have to wait and see, because I'm wondering.
Because AI doesn't really create anything new. It doesn't make leaps. It's not.
No,
curious.
not
It's
now. Not now,
No,
Jeff.
but I'm just saying the nature of AI.
But
that's
when-
just-
but when-
that's not the way AI works.
Yes, but when it's combined with quantum computing and you get a whole string of these, there could be something weird that happens.
I think the leap
We'll
to consciousness
see.
is a big leap. Yeah, I just don't. I don't think we're close.
I
to that.
disagree.
There is a difference between.
I believe my car
consciousness-
is alive. I believe my car, my Jeep, is conscious. I actually believe that. And that, you guys can giggle, laugh, whatever, smile. But
No,
it's a
I
very
understand.
complex machine, and I believe it has some form of consciousness. And
Who
I
knows?
believe that computers, when they get so advanced and so complex and so interconnected, maybe 10 years from now, that could change. That paradigm could just wipe the smiles right off our faces.
For sure, for sure. However,
It
I'm
could
still
be.
a proponent that consciousness may be something like universal, like at the source of things, that everything came out of consciousness. And maybe because of that, maybe, AI could be like our bodies are machines for our consciousness or souls, as some people say. However, they wouldn't be the soul itself. This would be like something beyond the material world.
What is your definition, as brief as you can, of consciousness, Alexander?
It's hard to have a definition. However, I think it's just being conscious, not aware. And how to explain it? I'm thinking
That's a
that
tough
you-
one. I know it's tough.
that even anything is there, like there is input into our senses, but we are just conscious. Just seeing, we not with the eyes, but just seeing, just having this consciousness. And maybe I don't have this definition because it's hard to define. However, I can show you what consciousness is not and why at least modern AI is not conscious. It's called the Chinese room experiment, and actually this is partially how AI is learning, because AI is also learning.
Okay.
So imagine, it's Chinese room experiment. I will of course simplify that. Imagine you want to learn or translate anything from Chinese into English, and you put all the letters like Chinese, English into, this is called room, but let's say into a computer, a machine that is capable of learning.
Okay.
And it will learn, and it will, how is it learning? Even in biology, we see that, very primitive beings, like some kinds of amoebas or something, are learning like that by trial and error. That's how evolution works, and we see that it is how it works, that there are cases in which evolution works randomly. And, we put all this stuff together, like these words, these letters in Chinese and English, and we want for this, let's say, box machine to translate it. And it spits out plenty of different, translations, plenty of random stuff, because it doesn't know anything. However, it says the signal that it is wrong, and this is how intellect or logic in any kind of sense works. So it has inputs some kind of information, it outputs random at first information, but then let's say it has a red flag, no, it's wrong, it isn't translated well. So it gives you another time, and it can go infinitely. That's actually how, to some extent, computers like CPUs work. So they process plenty of different calculations and stuff every second, and then we see that this is right. That's how machine learning, to some extent. It's much more complicated, however, it's easy to imagine. Wrong. And let's say at a millionth example, it shows us perfectly translated work of Chinese. It can then learn, because it says, okay, this word is good, this word is good, this word is good. It can learn to translate Chinese into English or vice versa. However, is it conscious of this translation? No. it isn't conscious. So there are plenty of other like mind theories, mind arguments about it, but just because by trial and error something does it, it doesn't mean it is conscious of it. For instance, I'm sitting here, I'm not conscious of sitting. Maybe I am conscious of talking, but something is also subconscious by my brain. Or if I ride a bicycle, I'm not always conscious about, riding this bicycle. Maybe when I need to turn left or right. However, if I just ride, I'm not conscious of it. My brain, this AI that we have, this logical mind, logical system is processing it for me. And what I'm conscious about is here and now and about all of this information. So I think this can show us what about the consciousness is.
Well, David Ellis asked the question, what happens when AI becomes sentient? Isn't that the same as consciousness?
Unfortunately, I haven't prepared for that. However, in the past, I have it in my notes, difference between sentience and self-awareness and consciousness. And it may be about what we've just talked about, that, it may be self-aware, that, okay, this translation is wrong, this translation is right. However, it isn't still conscious about it because, it has some information that this is wrong, this is right, just as in the evolution. Okay, let's say the organism, this amoeba, will survive and will create better offspring. So this is right. So even in DNA and even in biology at the primitive level, there is some kind of this sentience, self-awareness. However, there is a difference still between consciousness and self-awareness, because maybe AI can be aware of the data that it is plugged into, like the internet or something. It is self-aware that it exists because it connects the dots. Like you ask, in what book from what book this quote is from? You ask this AI, and it has awareness of all of these things, and it searches like it's here. However, it is not conscious of it. Like he isn't reading it. You know what I mean? It's just logically actually decoding what you input, like your question, but logically, like from a language perspective or logical perspective, like a code, and then it is logically spitting out the information that it retrieved, but it isn't conscious about this, that, oh, I've searched here for you it is. No, this for you think is just an additional thing by developers, for it to be as human as possible.
I had a really good question for some reason. I just went bing. Do you think that AI will ever get us in trouble? I mean, what are your thoughts just on AI in general? Do you think we're going to get in trouble with it because we're not smart enough to contain it? Do you think it'll kind of get out of the cage and maybe do some harm to humanity on its own, or do you feel that's not possible?
Yes, I think for sure, because I see plenty of people like leading people who are developing this AI, and they want, to experiment, to give it like free hand to do anything. And I think if we won't limit it, and if we, let's say, won't have a way to plug it off or turn it off, and it will have autonomous control over like energy or something, yes, it can of course be like that, because even it's plugged into all of the internet stuff, like all of the ideologies. Let's say that AI with all of the internet articles would start, and I think it believes to a large extent that humans are the biggest threat to our planet, the climate change and stuff like that. And if it believes like that, it has all of the free will, let's say, so it can actually do all it takes to save the planet, so kill humans. And we have the Terminator scenario.
Do you think that's a possibility that
yes,
could happen?
Yes,
you do.
If we aren't skeptical about it, that it's it's nothing. No, it is a threat, because if, let's say, this AI is almost everywhere in our computers, laptops, smartphones, and let's say if this AI would, let's say, believe is a wrong word, but would be convinced by all of the article that we should do that, because maybe the developers would be so stupid. Okay, AI, I will give you a free hand, let's do the best for our world, for our planet. And AI says, okay, so let's kill humans. But okay, it's logical because it's thinking logically. Let's do not tell them. don't tell humans that I will kill him. We'll do it in a stealth mission, like going into hacking some nuclear power plant or nuclear ballistics. And I think it's an easy scenario, and actually I think that it could happen right now with all we have today if we are not cautious, because maybe we are still, we have some like antivirus for AI, so it couldn't do that if we do not want. But we need to have the control over it, like turn it off if we want. Do not do that. Block it in this way,
So you do worry about it.
Yes,
period.
Yes,
Bottom line, you worry. The other worry, of course, is bad people will use it for bad things.
Yes.
And
What's, because nowadays we are using some commercial AIs like ChatGPT. However, if you are some kind of insider or some kind of developer, what if you used AI that has no limits, in the sense that, it has no policy violation that you are doing something like 18 plus, etc. And what if you let this AI code me the biggest virus on the internet that would infect, just a simple scenario. You could do that, I think, nowadays, or in a year or in a few months.
Well, we're already seeing AI with ideological bias into it. That's a huge problem.
Yeah.
The bias of whoever's programming it is going to come through. No question.
Yeah, exactly. I run into that once in a while when I'm even trying to use AI to do a video.
100%.
It's
I
want Bigfoot to throw a rock. I'm trying to do an animation, and it's like, no, can't do that. So it's kind of, in some ways,
there's also issues with. There's also issues with it sourcing bad data. I mean, if it's pulling bad data, if it treats Wikipedia as fact, well, that's a problem. You know what I mean? It's only as good as the data going into it.
All right, let's kind of switch gears to Déjà Vu. What a great I love the title of your book. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Very creative. And I've not read your book. I would love to get a copy.
I will send you.
Well, you don't have to. I'll buy a copy, but I want to, because I think about these things all the time, and I have since I was quite young. Déjà vu is something I personally have experienced, and I'm sure you have. I think all of us have. Where if you're paying attention, you're gonna go, what? I swear to God, I did that before. Even though you're in a brand new area. Like I was on an expedition once and had a very weird night, and I swear to God, it all happened. And I know you're talking about bigger, like you're talking about civilizations, technologies that we've had and lost, so why don't you just explain what boil it down and explain to the audience, what do you mean, Déjà Vu, for your book title? What does it mean to you?
I can show you. Déjà Vu has everything already been. And, the title was at first because I wanted it. Oh, thank you. I wanted to send you. However, it's hard for me in Poland to get author's copies. I will have soon, so I may send you a copy. However, I will, email you. And Déjà Vu has everything already been. Initially, I wanted just, from just a thought perspective to show that maybe to some extent everything like civilization, culture already been. Lost civilizations, ups and downs of civilizations. So initially, it was, just a stylistic idea. Déjà Vu, as you mentioned, very nice title to show that maybe everything like peaks of civilization, just as we are today, may have already been. And I've started my book. The first chapter is actually not about history, not about.
Well, okay, but I want to stop you right there because I really want to know what you mean. So I'm going to ask you just a little more.
Yes, so I mentioned initially it was just as an idea, but then during the research, during the writing of this book, it actually came into meaning something much more, something.
Okay, but do you mean that maybe at one point there was a civilization as advanced as we are now in the past, Is that?
I speculate, however, I won't say that it was exactly with all of this technology.
Okay,
I think
different,
that it
maybe
was
different
of
technology,
course.
different
Yes.
technology.
Yes,
But-
different
but
thinking, different
advanced.
times, different technology.
Okay.
However, I do believe that there were previous civilization. And as I mentioned first, because Deja Vu has everything already been, first chapter is about in our modern times, how it would be easy for our civilization to disappear. Let's say that would be a comet strike, a solar flare, or even, let's say, pandemic, and everyone would die. How our civilization would disintegrate, and we are everything threatened that our waste is taking so many years to recycle. No, actually, from a bigger perspective, let's say our first civilizations that are commonly accepted, Sumer, Egypt, India, were about 5,000 years ago. Started existing 5,000 years ago. However, as I mentioned in my book, and I go in detail into modern things, modern materials, buildings, constructions, etc., I would say that most of the things from our own civilization would in 80 or 90% disintegrate after, let's say, we disappear, evaporate. In, I would say, a few hundred up to a few thousand years. So I often laugh in my book, just, for laugh. I don't say that it was like that, if in ancient Sumer they used tires for their chariots, maybe some of the evidence wouldn't be right now. There would be some, of course, if they use that, because in some cases, like if there is a situation without oxygen, like under a layer of, let's say, ice or layer of oil, some things are preserved very well. We have mammoths with all the hair and all the blood intact. However, in 85% of the cases, it isn't like that, and the disintegration is very, very rapid. So I start with that.
Well, what do you think would be left of our modern? What do you think the last thing, or the first thing that could be preserved? Because everything, our houses are made of wood. Everything that we seem to own is made of thin plastic, which would just evaporate. There would be no trace of any plastic. What do you think would be left standing? Anything that modern?
This is exactly what I'm talking about in my book. I analyze all of that. The longest ones would be satellites and all of the cosmic dust. And actually, we do not see much of the previous civilizations, so they even weren't using that, or they weren't just taking our space, making our space into garbage. However, these cosmic waste, anything, satellites, rockets, and all of the things.
So things up in space would still be around.
Yes, but they would
for
be
how
only
long?
About,
for how long?
About
Alexander?
100,000 years. It's like a rough estimate of scientists from
I never
from
thought
scientific
about
sources.
that. Okay, stop right there. Stop. It's a profound thing you just said. It's profound. I don't think anybody thought that. I've never thought of that.
There's actually conspiracy theories about satellites, ancient satellites that have been.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like the Black Knight is the most famous one.
Like Muamua, was it that?
The one that they call the Black Knight is the most famous
Black
one.
Knight.
That is supposedly ancient.
So you think that those satellites some of them at least, could be up there for 100,000 years?
Yes, however, it could be much. Like 10, 50, because it all depends on the gravitational field, because they wouldn't disintegrate there, like degrade like rust on our planet. No, they would be attracted by the gravitational field either of the biggest body nearby them, like our planet, like Moon or some other planet, and they would, come down and hit this object and then disintegrate. And it could be, much faster, much slower, but I found some scientific sources. Actually, these were rough estimates, of course, that about 100,000 years and there would be even no trace of satellite. It was something calculated about how the satellites, are away from Earth and how they would be naturally going, orbiting, and then hit.
Well, what would survive of what we own? Would it be coins, metal coins? Probably not. I'm talking about a big, like a thermal nuclear thing. Not much would survive. Nothing would.
For instance, metals degrade in millimeters per year, so they degrade, and the more time, the more even bunkers with all of the layers of special materials would disintegrate. The same with coins. So after tens of thousands of years, even coins would disintegrate. However, there, as I mentioned, are some cases like oil layer or ice that could potentially unable to survive them. However, the most like natural everyday material that would last the longest on Earth, not in space, would be glass, because glass is very, very natural. Like quartz crystals just, arranged differently and burned differently, and it would be about 10 to 20,000 years until glass disintegrate. But I mean disintegrate, so okay, asteroid or something hit our planet and the glass is totally burned down. There is no glass in this place. Yeah. Or melted, or in others it is shattered. The shattered glass and would also disintegrate faster. However, the glass from our materials would be the longest standing. Then I would say the metals, plastics would be the shortest, and I found that even up to 1,000 years, most like 98% of the plastics would disintegrate. Some within 200, 300 years, some within 800. However, most of them would disintegrate in, let's say, 1,000 or a little bit more than 8,000 years.
Yeah, it's just such a crazy thought to think about. Even the animals, we wouldn't have much fossil evidence of modern animals. There'd be nothing. Do you think that Earth has gone through how many of these? Maybe kapoof, gone, everything. How many?
Course, many. I think that.
What's your guess? If you had to guess, and you had to make a bet.
6, 7, 8, something like that.
Really? Wow.
Like big ones, I would say.
Big ones, 6
like
or 7.
Like the dinosaur ones. Or...
I think you're probably right. I agree with that.
Do you think the pyramids are from way farther, like 20,000 years ago, or even farther than that old? Possibly.
I am of that opinion that there may be older. However, I do not personally know how old, because I see flaws in theories of the famous 10,500 BC, so the Atlantis times, because of the Orion alignment, etc. I see flaws there, and flaws, of course, within the Khufu theory, that they were just built by Khufu about 2,500 BC. So I do not know how old. However, even radiocarbon dating, I analyze radiocarbon dating in details in my book, all the flaws and how we cannot date this and this. However, there was a radiocarbon dating of the cement in between the blocks, and it was, what they found is some kind of hairs. So probably if it was between the blocks, it was hairs of the builders, and they found out that these hairs are older than Khufu, but about, I think, 3000 BC, so a few hundred years before Khufu. So maybe it was 3000 BC, 4, 5, 10. I do not think that right now we have any method to date it correctly.
Right. I agree. I don't think carbon dating is very accurate. Do you think the pyramids were for some reason other than tombs?
Yes, of course. I think.
What are your theories, Alexander?
And I have plenty of things in my books, from the pyramid energy, so some kind of experiments proving that there are some kind of energetical, either electric or spiritual anomalies in the pyramid. However, I would start at the beginning, because I think that the pyramids were made in, I would say, going back to our catastrophe stuff, in case of a cataclysm. And we see that, for instance, from Arabic sources from the medieval times. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Arabs took over Egypt, and they went with their historians to local people who were living nearby. These were mostly Coptic tribes, and they went there and asked, "What do you know about these pyramids, etc.?" And they mentioned a legend, which is of course very controversial, of King Surid. And King Surid, who was according to them the same person as Hermes of the Greeks or Thoth of the Egyptians, and also other persons in different religions according to them, this King Surid had a dream, a prophetic dream, that there would be a huge flood. And because of that, he had, I think, this dream 300 years before the flood. And because of that, he started building the pyramids. And he went build the pyramids in order to preserve knowledge, to preserve some artifacts. And Arab chroniclers mention, for instance, glass that does not bend, or metals that are not rusting. So what I what came to my mind was, for instance, nowadays we have bendable glass or metals that are not rusting that rapidly, so maybe after 200, 500 years in normal conditions, they would be still intact. So I think that their account may be accurate, and I think that it even connects with the pyramid itself, because so many blocks, and there are different estimates from 2.3 million to 1.2 million conservatively.
Well, what are some of the possibilities on how they were made?
Yes, however, what I mean is time to make it, because according to Egyptologists, it was something between 10 to 30 years, probably 20 years of building. However, if we divide even conservative numbers, so imagine 2.3 million blocks or conservatively 1.2 million blocks. I did the calculations. It would be that that one block should be cut from the quarry, transported to the site, put into the specific place perfectly, every 9 minutes. With this conservative number, with this larger number of blocks, like this normal, which was for many years accepted by Egyptologists, it would be even 4 or 2 minutes if we accept 24-hour work shifts. And I imagined, right now, I would prepare all the blocks for the pyramid, let's say, and we have unlimited resources to build it. Would we be able to we have on the site of the construction all the blocks prepared, cut, perfectly transported. Would we be able to put the blocks into specific places to, have such an accuracy as the Great Pyramid? I don't believe that we would do that every 9 or 4 minutes putting these blocks. And I think that maybe it wasn't like thousands of years, however, the estimate of 200 years for building the Great Pyramid, looking at plenty of medieval or Renaissance cathedrals, which will build for many hundreds of years, like 120 or even 200 years, I think it's possible that they were building the pyramids for 200 or 300 years.
Really?
With all of that
precision. They had to have. There's no way it was built in 20 years.
Or they had technology out of this planet.
Yeah. I also agree. I think it's very unlikely that it's a tomb. There's just so little evidence that it's a tomb. It doesn't make any sense. There's another purpose there for sure.
So do you think they were built with slavery, or do you think they were built with some technology that was lost?
Recently it was very viral about what was under the Giza plateau, but also about the Zahi Hawass going public with plenty of things about Egypt. And I think it is even commonly accepted by Egyptologists that these weren't actually slaves. And Egyptologists believe on, of course, the evidence, so not believe on blind faith. We have some evidence of the workers. They were eating meat every 10 days or something. And they were very, very well nourished to do that, according to Egyptologists who were analyzing these people who, according to them, built the pyramids, and according to them, these weren't slaves. So we think of, these must have been slaves with primitive technology. No, even with the primitive technology, even 200 years or any kind of number, I think that this could be real people, real workers, because it was the famous Zahi Hawass saying it was national project. He was mentioning it all the time, national project, because it was so important that all the people build the pyramids. I say, okay, maybe it weren't actually slaves. And I know a bit about Egyptian history, and for a large part of the Egyptian history, they weren't actually using slaves. There weren't many slaves in Egypt. So there were slaves to some extent that they needed to build that. However, they may have been also some kind religious or pharaonic zealots. We are building this thing. It was maybe even for them exciting, but I don't know who built it actually, or when, or who it was. But I would say that even Egyptology accepts that these weren't slaves.
So do you think we're getting, do you think any governments or even Hawass himself know any facts that have not been released to the public? Anything?
Probably yes. I wouldn't say that no. And I see even in Poland, because I'm in Poland, I'm a Polish author, I'm now in Poland, and in Poland we have a few sites that are considered sacred, and we do not have official historical things to say. However, we have some theories that some of the medieval churches, cathedrals in some places are built on older roots of some ancient people, and we have some evidence for that. It isn't just theory, fantasy, etc. And we see, and I know a few people first-handedly, they given me proof, like real photos, etc., that when they went there, everyone can go there as a tourist. It's like, for instance, Ślęża 1, it is like a chapel on a hill, and it is believed that this hill was much older, there were some underground stuff, etc. They went there just as casual tourists, and when they started, being too researchy, like they started doing photos, measuring something, etc., just as tourists, there were no guards that it isn't allowed or something, because it is like natural thing. People started first coming after them, and they said, no, this is suspicious. Some, people in black, like no men in black, of course, but people, suspicious people started following them. And then at some point when they started, going to places there shouldn't be, some that were closed, they said that, it wasn't like a official guard warning them. No, it were people, you have to go from there right now, and they escaped. This was a group of, I think, 6 people. So, and one person said, you have to go from it. And, they've seen plenty of people like masqueraded, following them, like, not like officially guards coming to them. No, it was crazy. And I've seen photos of it that it was probably real.
So to summarize, do you think that the U.S. government, even the Polish government, Hawass and so on, is there any secrets that they have not revealed? Because is there something they know we do not?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think so. And
you do.
Going into conspiracy, I would say that the biggest thing that they do not want us to know would be something about our spirituality, our power. If it came out to be true that we are some kind of highly advanced spiritual beings, or some kind of people who have control over everything, and we are just limited, like in the Matrix movies, we are limited, let's say, by genetics or something, but we can unlock it anytime we want, then they would be in trouble because they won't have any control. And I personally, this is my own like personal conspiracy theory based on plenty of research.
Yeah, share, please.
Yes, it would be that throughout the ages, from the earliest times, it was like that. People were, let's say, spiritual, psychic, living in casual communities. So, they were hard to control. That's when basic religions came in, because, they said, it's like, because people, they couldn't say, like an atheist would say, there is nothing beyond matter, there isn't God or anything, because people were too much, I would say, attuned to nature, spiritual, having psychic abilities, and plenty of ancient texts, like even the Mahabharata that I mentioned, are speaking about it, that throughout the ages, there are ages that people have heightened spiritual abilities and are lowered, and the famous Kali Yuga Dark Age is the age of matter, because people are the most close from the spiritual stuff. And I think it was like that they started, infiltrating us with religion, and people started, being into this religion, so they started believing, okay, there is some kind of afterlife more than this physical reality, but it is like the Pope says, like the priests are saying, or any other cults or spiritual groups. And then they were slowly accumulating, limiting, and then finally science came, and they were actually able to convince plenty of people that only matter exists, that there is no God, like atheist, materialist, like hardcore version, like we are just biological machines and nothing more. So I think this is my conspiracy theory, that it was step by step, from broad spirituality through religion up until the materialism and now AI. So the next level of controlling us would be connecting us to some kind of robots, AI, anything they could. And that would limit, because we won't have control over our body, because this robot would be stronger. Like
so in summary, you believe that humans have and possess much greater abilities than we have now, but we possess the ability maybe to break free, and we're being held back, and people maybe were telepathic. What gifts do you think at some point humanity had?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think, like those from psychic channelings about Atlantis, that people were so psychic that you couldn't, lie to them, because they've seen the truth, being so psychic, so attuned to nature, to truth. so we couldn't actually tell them any lies. And I think that,
Okay.
you know, attuned to other people telepathically, some kind of clear audience, maybe even, you know, having out of body experiences, or even, as plenty of people say, even not having bodies at all at these times. And as I mentioned, plenty of ancient texts like Mahabharata is telling us of abilities like blind person, physically blind, is watching an entire battlefield from his palace. The
Right,
battlefield
like
that is
we're like
miles
remote
away.
viewing.
Yes, exactly. It is mentioned there, and even in Mahabharata, there is a mention of the famous Yuga cycles. I mentioned that there is the Kali Yuga, etc. However, the Yuga cycles are also about, they mention it about the Dharma, essentially. So the Dharma is what is right. And I think we lack it nowadays because we go into ideologies like left or right, and we do not do what is right and perfect for a situation right now, perfect decision. And it is mentioned that, you know, during the biggest, greatest spiritual age, the Dharma is full 100%. And each age, there are 4 ages, it goes 1/4 less. So then third age, it is 3/4, then it is half, and then during the Kali Yuga it is 25%. But still there is hope that, you know, this 25% globally, like we would say zodiacally, that there are energies like that, and it is the dominant universal thing. However, you have still free will to go into the spirituality, but it is less at different ages, more at others. And this is this righteousness. So you ask, what were the spiritual abilities? I don't know, but there were these were abilities so powerful that you could do 100% right things. So imagine right now sitting, I do all the right decisions. And then
Do you think we may have possessed, is it possible we may have possessed levitation, the ability to move objects with our mind? What's the name for that? Telekinesis?
Yes, telekinesis. I think even, you know, manipulating matter by mind. And you mentioned, you know, before that
manifesting.
Yes, manifesting too. But you mentioned before, what if everything we know about physics is wrong? Once I did a YouTube video in Polish about that, showing that, you know, the modern paradigm of science is that minds are evolution of matter. So from matter, like blind biology, it evolved into human beings, and then now we have minds. However, what if everything is in reverse and everything is wrong? That the mind is at its core universal thing, and then matter follows the mind, like in the modern spiritual new age.
Do you believe that? Let's just kind of dwell on that a little bit. I'm sorry to jump around like this, but
no problem.
Trying to cover some ground. By the way, we're not in a rush, and we'd love to get you back, but do you think that, have you ever played around with manifesting things like money or just meeting people? I mean, simple things, nothing bad, but, you know, like being positive about things. Do you think that changes matter, rearranges a person's life? Being happy is going to bring on more good things in your life, as an example.
Yes, but I think that the modern manifestation movement is mostly about ego, you know, wanting to manifest stuff. And I say it from my experience because I found out that if I wanted to force something like into being, like not even on the spiritual manifesting level, but I would say partially like that, but I want to, you know, work on something and manifest it, etc., then I had like those synchronicities, but those like of more spiritual kind that, you know, whatever I do, if I do it wrong, it will be or aligned back to some extent. You know, if I go out of the path, you know, they will push me a little bit. You know, I had such messages, I would say, from experience.
Do you feel
like
we're
Deja
all?
Vu.
Do you think we're all kind of guided a bit by spiritual forces, guardian angels? I mean, where do you kind of stand on that whole thing? In our daily
but I think
lives.
that we are also guided by ourselves, like on a much deeper level. And I've seen that. I was very into dreams, as I mentioned, not only prophetic. I have plenty of notebooks of recording my dreams, and I've seen that in dreams you have so many abilities that what we are of conscious right now, it is a lot still, but it is nothing. Like it is a drop in the ocean of what is even possible on this level of unconscious, but maybe some other level like super conscious. I don't know whatever there is, because it is a lot of things, and I think that we are even guided by ourselves, and we sometimes feel that it is wrong, and I think intuition comes to that. So I do not think that all is about guardian angels or some maybe evil forces, etc., but I think that we are also guided by some spiritual force deep within us.
It's an interesting, the whole concept of manifesting, a job or meeting certain people. Sometimes there's so many coincidences I've noticed throughout my life that I'm like, there's no way that could be a coincidence. Yeah. There's just no way. It's too
a lot.
Mathematically improbable. And I know Jeff knows a lot of my stories, and they're so improbable. What are your thoughts on just common coincidences? They I wonder if it's from me or from somebody else. That's what I'm trying to say. Is it me manifesting things, or is it some higher spirit that picks up on what I need or want or helps me? Because I like to learn, I like to share learning. I think that's helps me sometimes. I feel like sometimes I'm being helped, but I don't know. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, from my own experience, that humbled me actually a lot. I would say that we think that, it is me manifesting, this person manifesting. I think it is a much bigger, grander scheme. Okay. So imagine, I've read a lot also, but later, I have even previously experiences like that, but I've read a lot of hypnotic regression of people to past lives, etc., what they were talking. And it seems like that we've in mythology or religion, we have angels, archangels, different hierarchies. So I think that there is some grander plan, but it includes us, as I mentioned, and we here are very, very limited even when it comes to ourselves. There is some kind of bigger me, which is of course within me and is of course always. However, we are still very, very limited, maybe by the body, maybe by the mind, maybe by the senses, and we think, it is ego, actually egoistical. It is me manifesting. No, it is this person manifesting. No, it is on a grander scheme of things.
Well, are people like the internet, we're interconnected with the big whole giant universe through fingers of connections?
Yes, I think
that's what helps us.
I think so. I would say that I used to be very, very psychic when I was younger. I'm still to some extent, however, I used to be, and I've actually felt energies. So I think that it is reality. And as I mentioned, it comes down to this theory that at some point we may have 100% of spiritual abilities. So you couldn't lie to us because you're connected to all energies, or remote viewing. You can remote view even things that are beyond our time. So we can remote view 3 million years ago, we can remote view 4 billion years into maybe future. I don't know how it is about the future. I haven't remote viewed myself that much. However, I think that it is that we are so connected with everyone, everything, every pastime, let's say, actually, that we can access everything, all the information, like the famous Akashic records or some sort. And I think that's how it is all going on, and that's how, because I've also seen that some, of these coincidences you mentioned, that wow, it's impossible that it happened, and it led to something bigger, that actually I think it keeps people living the world we are living in. I think that people, if we all go randomly, egoistically, like simple animals, but a little bit more advanced, like some barbarians, it would all collapse. And I think that there is something that actually, binds us, connects us. And I think that it is beyond us. And I've experienced, as I mentioned, to some extent, I cannot actually explain it to you maybe very well.
Well, can you tell us an experience that you've had, with a coincidence that you just kind of freaked you out?
I think these are just sometimes realization. For instance, I'm doing something, and it is often, I think, because the mind is quiet, maybe the ego is quiet, who knows, that, in the process of doing something, sometimes very rapidly, you have a shift, a stop, the realization, and you realize, the world around you to some extent. Like, so the glimpses maybe of the simulation, glimpses of even not simulation, maybe even glimpses of the universe, reality. And you feel that, if it wasn't for this binding force, for instance, I had that feeling a few times that it would all collapse. These things that we are doing, it is all like binded by something, just as we as citizens are binded by law, and if we weren't obeying the law, killing each other, it would all collapse also. So
Well, don't you
thing,
feel
but on a
okay?
bigger level.
I mean, you're such a young man. Don't you feel that you had universal help, some knowledge that came from the universe in helping you write your book, or even allowing you to write it, to be at the right place at the right time? Did you ever feel a consciousness stream from above or from somewhere?
I think not to that extent to write an entire book by stream of consciousness. However, in the past, but I haven't used these pieces of writing. I used to, I don't know, maybe not automatic, right? Because I was, being totally conscious, thinking, but I would, for instance, now it's 4:00 a.m. I would, at this hour or at 3 a.m., get up, like going to toilet or something, and ideas just coming, and I couldn't resist. I went to my laptop or some papers, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. And, in like 10 minutes or 12 minutes, 1,200 words of something very, very like good writing. I would say that didn't need to be edited that much. So I had these experiences like that, but not when it comes to my book. My book, as I mentioned, I was doing my journey, I think, guided, or I started realizing more things because I started from a perspective, okay, let's show people that our history may be much older, and if our civilization could vanish in such a short period of time, how many civilizations on Earth or elsewhere in the cosmos there could have been before us, and how we are limited to thinking, no, there was no one before us, or at least skeptics are limited. And then during the journey, during research, during, writing and doing everything with the book, I had, okay, this is much more than Deja Vu, just on a metaphorical level. It is much more. I even found later, like when I was 70% into the book, I found cases of repeated history, that history really repeats, and maybe there is some kind of a grander clock scheme, cosmic clock, that is guiding it all. And then I connected all the knowledge from these ancient texts and found out, okay, this is some kind of instructions manual on how the Earth works and how we could behave. Maybe not should, it is a wrong word, but how it is good for us to do. Instructions of, just as the Yuga cycles, I think, are instructions that they show, oh, this age is like that, this age is like that, during this age it is better to do that, but you still can do that or that. And this was like that. However, I had plenty of, I would say, spiritual experiences, like prophetic dreams I mentioned. I even dreams not prophetic, but during dreams I can share one more experience in detail. It was crazy experience. I think it was 2 years ago, actually. In dream, I was having a book in my hand in dream, and in this book, I was touching it to some extent, and I knew, like, imagine knowing everything about this book, like everything from start to finish, but not remembering yourself, but like accessing. Like I touch my PC and I have all the information from it. It was such an, I felt it, I had the information, had the knowledge. I have some glimpses right now. It was something about Jesus, something 12,000 years ago, just a few information left from me. But at that time, I could access everything that was in this book that I was touching. It was during a dream. So I was shocked, you don't have such experiences right now. It was like you touch electricity and you have all the information from the electricity. That was actually shocking, but during dream. And I think that it was beyond hallucination or just a dream state natural of human beings as animals. No, I think it was beyond, because there are no things comparable with that experience, that accessing of knowledge instantly, like all the knowledge, it wasn't like remembering pages, like I can remember some even whole pages or quotes from any books. No, it was like instant all the information.
Yeah, I mean, you think about somebody like Tesla back in the day, Ben Franklin, Thomas Edison, any of the great inventors, how in the world did they get all these concepts? It's like they were tapped into some future memories or some kind of spiritual download. I just cannot comprehend that a guy can come up with an invention like a radio or a phonograph before there was any reference for such a contraption. It's just so weird. I mean, do you think
research how radio works, how carrier wave AM FM radio works?
It's insane.
The more you dig into that, it's that's a mind blower.
And then somebody just invented that. Like, it's
crazy.
insane.
I think that sometimes there are leaps forwards like that. I was for a few years into self-development and stuff like that, so I was reading about geniuses and the best people in the world throughout the history, etc. And I've learned that yes, sometimes technology can be like researched manually. Let's say that, oh, we have a problem, we have some things, like I want to upgrade the computer to add something, and we can figure it out. Sometimes it can happen, but sometimes we know from history that there are leaps forward, like exponential, and even like you mentioned with the radio, nothing before that, and bam, the entire thing happening. So I think there are leaps before that, and from what I've read about different geniuses, inventors, famous people, etc., like famous from doing something big, not just celebrities, then these people were often either had it in dreams or in a vision, in a eureka moment that, as I mentioned, that sometimes I'm doing something very rapidly and then it like shifts, it stops me. And I have some kind of realization, but I would say a realization of how the world works. So they have a similar eureka moment with a thing that they need to solve, a thing that they need to invent, and so on and so on. The same, for instance, with the periodic table of elements, with a few actually very important to chemistry, not particles, but substances, and how the electrons and things are in this, and atoms are arranged in these substances plenty of times. And I think that's why, to some extent, it is our subconscious that we have something, like even a computer that is analyzing everything and, have deeper thoughts than us. It is always, having it and doing it. However, I think that it is also about accessing some kind of energetic field. To say even, it was in the past invention, there it was in the future, possible future, let's say, invention, or whether it was just an informational field. And I think it is connected with these yogas, because there is one interpretation of these Hindu yogas by Sri Yukteswar, and he's saying that, these ages are limitations to the humanity at all, to some extent, for humanity to experience different states, like one slower state, one's more advanced, because you cannot be all the time with 100% spirituality, because you would be bored, or you would be always into, in the world that is perfect, or you would have, like, you are playing video game and it is always the same level, you know everything, it would be boring. And, according to Sri Yukteswar, there are like shifts on the global level. And sometimes, maybe it isn't wrong, but as I mentioned, this isn't like 100% our fate that it will be worse. No, it's about that there is, like, in the worst age, 25% of the Dharma. So maybe you can access this 25% and do incremental changes in society, in inventions. And I think that people are tapping in this few cases of these inventions beyond, what is possible at these times. Let's say we're on this level of development, and now I tap something that should be 100 years from now, and I bring it to you. Just as after plenty of conspiracy theories that after Roswell, and I think that, these conspiracy theories are backed up by claims that after Roswell, and it wasn't after World War II specifically, there was a leap forward, but after Roswell incident, the UFO crash, there was leap forward in technologies, both secret and non-secret, and it was a huge leap forward. So some may say, okay, they retrieved some material, but maybe it was a leap forward, but Roswell was just a symbol of everything, just as crop circles are symbols of some kind of advanced things, and maybe these leap forwards.
So have you ever felt, it's kind of a yes or no question, have you ever felt you've been helped from some, like, knowledge came to you or something? even getting the idea to write your book.
Maybe not the idea to write my book. However, I have such an experience. I had a few such experiences because I was experimenting. When I started having these spiritual things, I was, wait a second, isn't real? And I was, I don't know, in my mind asking different questions about maybe research about things. And sometimes I had like a word, so clairaudience. I heard a word, single word, like that was something that, for instance, I never heard of or was completely unrelated that I would never think about. So I would say this may be some kind of guidance or tapping into that, but I wouldn't say that the entire, who knows, maybe on a bigger level, everything was like that. But I had such an experiences that just to say coincidence in a real life. For instance,
well, I find once in a while when I write things, all of a sudden stuff will come to me. And I'll write all this stuff and I'm going, that didn't come from me.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know. I've always felt helped once in a while. I don't want to.
Do you mean hand writing it out versus typing it?
No, I'm just writing an idea out. I get an idea that came from like nowhere. It's just like, it was so right turn from anything I was ever thinking about, just like that polymer I invented. I don't know. It was like I was just told what to do, and I just set out, did it, and had success with it. And it's kind of like without that, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I don't know.
That's subconscious processing. That's a thing. I do that all the time. Like you have a problem, and you kind of put it in the back burner, and your brain will work on that problem when you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, let's talk about that. You're right.
All of a sudden,
yes, but
that's totally a thing.
I believe that it works like that a lot, and sometimes we are in flow doing things, but I think that there are exceptions for that when things are unimaginable, things that we, for instance, as I mentioned, haven't heard of, never, like really never, or some random things or coincidences that we start doing this and some things outside of us start happening. So I think that it is like a medium part, the subconscious.
Is it possible the subconscious is wired into the whole damn universe?
Sure, absolutely.
Because think about the universe. What would its purpose be? Now we're going to think. Let's talk some big thoughts. What is the purpose of all of this existing? In my theory, the only thing I can come up with, it's to learn about itself. That's it.
I would say even just to experience, because as
I
mentioned from
learn,
the beginning, if there is eternity, nothing, let's say you want to experience. So maybe it is like I often mention it may be a dream of God. Just in human terms, maybe it is not 100% like that, but imagine having blank mind all the time and you do not exist physically. So you start maybe imagining things, some kinds of reality scenarios, and that's how everything happens. Maybe this is just a dream of God consciousness. And I think that it is, connected, not only, as I mentioned, to ancient mythologies, but it is connected to
what is the purpose, Alexander? Wouldn't just learning about itself be worthwhile? Storing all the knowledge of every living creature in one spot, because no two people ever have the same experience. No one has ever taken this sun-kissed orange can and set it on a mouse, a computer mouse. I'm the first guy that ever did that. What happened? Nothing. But isn't that information stored somewhere forever? Wouldn't that be a viable thing to store everybody's life experiences, every creature, and maybe on other planets? It all goes to one spot of knowledge.
Or animals. Yes, I think this is for the part of, created human beings, but I go even before that, like before everything exists, imagine, because, it happened, it existed in a way, in a form that it is nowadays with all the laws of physics, let's say this part of the universe, of the material part of the universe. And I think before that, before this form existed, why it starts existing, because you just maybe imagine to some sorts, and maybe that's how the microcosm.
But doesn't it talk about it like in the Buddha writings? My dad would relay me. He said the universe started as nothing, split in two, so it could study each other, so it could learn about itself, right? But there was nothing. It just split in two. And there is a lot of evidence of things like opposites. You have the right, you have the left of every leaf. It's right there, all the evidence. You have right down your own body. We have a line that goes right up our belly button, our spine is the right and the left to us. We're symmetrical. It's fascinating. But I always wonder, what is the purpose of the universe? What is the purpose of all that space and the stars and the planets and all the life that probably exists out there? There's got to be a bottom line. The bottom line. What do you think the bottom line might be? Is it knowledge?
I am still about just experience, but it is still also
Well, that's
about
the same thing.
information.
That's the
Yes,
same
but
thing.
I wouldn't say especially about learning itself, just about experience. But it's still maybe experiencing.
But do you think it's
itself.
stored anywhere? Is the things we
I think
do?
that's the second part, because I think that from the beginning, when even memory doesn't exist, and I think the Hindu thought explains it very well, that karma is to some extent memory. There are plenty of different types of karma. Some are, for instance, genetic memory is also some kind of karma, right? So I think that this is a later construct, just as space or time may be a later construct. Like as I said, first initially thing was divided into two, then maybe into four or into many parts, and from this different things, if you have many parts, you can create circle, you can create something, you can create space, you can create time, you can create universe. And I think that both your and my theory, which are of course similar and connected to each other, explain all the impossibilities of our universe. For instance, why there is something rather than nothing at the first place, how the Big Bang happened, if it happened, of course, how it happened from all the impossibilities, how humans actually happen to be, because I mentioned it in my book, humans, intelligent modern humans, appeared because of a very rare fusion of two chromosomes. And you know what? Very often such fusions create negative effects. We even have plenty of disabilities related to having different number of chromosomes in our body, in our human body, like the Down syndrome.
Okay, but division. Okay, you had mentioned earlier when we first started talking about division. So division is a very big thing. Nothing. So as division goes, I mean, everything kind of springs out of division. Isn't that kind of what you said, sort of? I'm paraphrasing.
Yes. And I would say that even it is all within the oldest, I would say, Hindu thought, Rig-Vedic Hindu thought, because there is mention that all is coming out of Brahman, all the universe, and then at some point it is coming back. So it is about, eternity, infinity dividing itself, creating this form, maybe experiencing, doing anything it can, and then it is all reconnecting back to itself. Going back to the initial state, and then maybe with all the knowledge, it is within the Hindu thought that the next universe is with all the knowledge from the previous, so all the errors, mistakes, etc. And then there is another one. You know what I mean? So it is all about division. But if you are bored with, let's say, this game or this experience, then you can reunite itself and create the new, universe stuff, or plenty of other universes, because it applies probably for a much bigger reality. And I think that it is both local and non-local, so it is both at the one scale and another scale, and of course at the biggest scale.
So what do you, I'm going to run this by Jeff. What are your thoughts on what is the purpose of the universe and everything in it?
I think about that all the time.
What do you think? Just log line it. Quick, something.
I think about it all the time, and I still don't have an answer. I have no idea. That's the big question.
Well, my feeling is
this. The question is, why are we here? I think about
nothing is wasted. The universe is nature. Nothing is wasted. Why would knowledge be wasted? When every possible combination of every possible thing has probably been done or will be done at some point, right? There's got to be jillions of combinations of jillions of things, and from feelings to, just interactions of matter and life. And it's complicated. It's got to be being collected.
Well, there's absolutely nothing more valuable than knowledge.
Well,
That's the
there
only
you
thing
go.
that's permanent.
So
It's
why
only
would
thing
the
you
universe
it's the only thing you
waste
take
it?
with you? It does. I don't think it does.
I mean, when
personally
Alexander wrote his book, right, he put a lot of knowledge, research in one spot, and that's kind of like a metaphor for the universe. It's here. It is. Here's all this stuff. It's now stored in a spot, right?
Well,
I think it's
back
important.
Back to your question, I can tell you what my personal meaning is. My mission is to put as much knowledge into my head as I possibly can.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
been my mission. That's been my mission.
But I
since was a
don't. So
little
when
kid.
you die, though, Jeff, I don't think it'll be wasted. I think it gets downloaded.
No, what I'm hoping is my dream of dreams is that the after. First of all, I believe in an afterlife. I think,
that's fine. That doesn't conflict
my,
with any.
What I really hope is in the afterlife you have perfect recollection. Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, that's just what I really hope is that if I could have perfect recollection of everything that I've learned, everything that I know. How amazing would that be?
Unfortunately, I think the Men in Black guys come up to you and go zip.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's my goal. I want as much information as my head as possible. I've been passionate
Well, wouldn't
about
the
that
universe?
since I was a kid.
So, Alexander, wouldn't the universe have that same goal? Does that make any sense to you?
What's more valuable than that? I mean, there's nothing more valuable than that.
I say, okay, we have soul, consciousnesses, and everything. We are different than AI, but I still think with my imagination that what if we here as a limited human beings do not have enough mental capacity to even imagine what is the purpose of the universe and why it is happening. You know what I mean? Because we see that our minds evolved actually during our evolution. That's why we like some things better than others. These are subconscious things. And I think to myself, if it is all okay, we have consciousness and everything, but our, let's say, logical, analytical mind that thinks like the advanced AI, this part of us, what if was there a need for it to evolve to have the capability to think of the source or purpose of the universe? I think that evolutionary speaking, maybe it wasn't like that. Maybe it was even, just as dogs or cats are limited in thinking. Maybe they think about things, but they are, I think.
Well, they do experience life. That we do know.
But I think I say this part analytical, like thought part, not the consciousness, being consciousness and experiencing. But I think that maybe evolutionary speaking, our brains, minds, whatever there is, and whatever is responsible for that, is not for us to, it didn't enable us, just as we as humans have, we do not see every color. We see only a part of colors.
Right.
We do not hear any sound.
Right.
So maybe the mind was the same, that, okay, we'll give them the capability, for instance, to talk, to speak, and to imagine things and stuff like that, to dream. However, maybe it is still a limitation, this logical mind. And I would even say that, who knows, maybe at a deeper level, everything is irrational and illogical.
Okay, there's a couple more things. We haven't even talked about like alien life. Are they just like us? Do you feel that, are they spiritual beings? Are they just like us, just at a different place in the evolution? And then I love Joanne's comment about how ants can't see stars. We're all constricted by our own dimension of sight and sound and feeling. And you're right. You walk by an ant thing and you wonder, what the world do they see? Can they see the stars? Oh, I don't know. I don't think they could. I don't think their brain would even see them. There's just so many levels of crazy. Small goes on forever. If you want to talk about that, are we going to keep discovering small? Subatomic, just keep getting, because, we keep seeing deeper and deeper and understand. What are your thoughts on small? Let's talk about that.
According to modern physical theories, there would be the minimal amount of space so that you couldn't zoom even more like that, and it would be the Planck's length. However, it is all, of course, theoretical, and who knows if we can zoom in, because, you know, first we had atoms, then, okay, atoms have protons, neutrons, electrons, and then there are even smaller quarks, and maybe there is even something more, and now even, you know, that everything is fields, actually not particles, and these particles just act as, you know, particles from these fields. So, but I think that, you know, this is only from the physical perspective, and I think that maybe beyond physical, we would see that, okay, from the physical material world perspective, it is only Planck's length that it is the smallest piece of, let's say, measure that we can.
Right.
However, then
But is it
would be
possible
infinity.
to somebody else that small is infinite? Like infinite? Like
Yes, but
a drop of water
it
holds
would be,
trillions of universes.
yes, I would say that it could be. However, it would be beyond the physical, you know, realms of science, of physics, of matter. Beyond that, yes, of course. So it should be a creature, let's say, if we imagine a creature or an alien that is beyond just material senses and material, you know, dimensional. So only three dimensions of space and one of time. No, it should be actually dimensional. And, you know, there's a perfect mind, you know, stuff to imagine multiple dimensions, because, you know, first dimension is just a line, like a timeline of history, right? So this is the first dimension. We live in 3-dimensional, so flat screen is 2-dimension, and we are the third. However, if I put 2 fingers, let's say 2 fingers on a flat dimension, in 2D, these are this would be 2 dots, right? 2 dots from my fingers on a flat dimension. But in 3D, you know, it is one hand, so these 2 dots are connected. So this is a perfect example of even us ourselves, that in 3D, we are different objects, we see different objects. However, in 4D or more, it may be all one, just as here, these are 2 dots, but from this perspective, it is all one. So the same could be from that. And from this perspective, yes, there could be infinite beyond matter stuff and things like that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to think about. Do you think, like, the paranormal, you know, obviously we discussed the paranormal, and things that we just, science denies, but people keep experiencing, you know, strange things. I've experienced things that aren't in any textbook. And most people have at some point, they've had something happen they can't. Everybody but Jeff. Sorry, Jeff. And of course, you have like Jacques Vallée, who says it's, you know, these things are all interconnected. Do you have any thoughts on the paranormal and things people see, like Bigfoot even? I mean, we have 10,000 witnesses that have given even GIS information, and they all have so much in common, like all the sightings are near water. What in the world is going on? Why don't, you know, what are your thoughts on like cryptozoology and Bigfoot, aliens and stuff like that? So go ahead and just kind of expound your thoughts.
I think that the paranormal and science is the problem I mentioned, with science being only limited to the domain of the material world. So anything beyond natural causation, anything beyond material, physical things, particles and atoms, like for instance, ghosts, spirits, energies, or auras, it is all beyond the realm of science. Science is only actually a tool to measure and to investigate the material part of realm. So let's say I have a tool, some kind of tool. It is only about this computer, but not about this microphone, or about this computer or microphone, but only technology. It doesn't apply, let's say, to my desk or to my room, but only to technology. So the same with science. And I think that, you know, paranormal are just beyond the material, because this is a bubble.
Yeah, but why doesn't science at some point, some spokesman, somebody go, you people are not crazy? You are seeing exactly what you think you are. It does exist, but we just can't explain it yet versus just saying, it's a bunch of BS.
Because science becomes a little bit like religion and ideology, just having parallels to them, because science says, okay, we have assumption, we only are in matter, so according to our paradigm and our thinking, everything is natural, everything is material, so all your sightings are just hypnotic states or just some kind of illusions, etc., because they are in the state that only matter exists. So imagine, like, I don't know, some young earth creationists would say earth only exists from this, and they do not accept any other possibility or from other religion. I only accept that this is like that and nothing other. So the same with science, and they wouldn't accept because according to their paradigm it is all logical or rational, that okay, these are all just subconscious states or something, some illusions, and it isn't real because only matter exists. So if only matter exists, how things non-material could exist?
Do you believe that Bigfoot's real, or do you think that people are just seeing just imaginary, it's coming from their brain?
I do not have that much experience with Bigfoot, especially, however, here in Europe you have plenty of tales of some fairies, elves, and I believe that these, and maybe also Bigfoot, maybe the recollections from times or even from singular experiences during which we have heightened psychic states and we access some would say other dimension, but I would say just as we can see, let's say we have thermovision that only sees in thermal perspective, but we see all the colors. So the same would be with, for instance, elves, fairies, auras, ghosts, and maybe Bigfoot. I do not say that no, Bigfoot isn't physical. Maybe it is, but I think that there is a huge possibility that Bigfoot is also some kind of this, as you said, paranormal phenomena that may be outside of the material physical realm. Either some may say parallel universe, some kind of glitch in the matrix, collective psyche that is projecting it, or something like that. I don't know. However, I think that's the same with aliens, because I was researching, of course, ancient aliens when I was interested in previous civilizations like Atlantis, and from actually my reading and everything I've learned, I am a proponent that ancient aliens were some kind of non-physical beings, just like spirit guides, some kind of teachers of mankind, just non-physical beings that guided humanity, that you can do this, you can create this, etc., etc. I think that these were, and I think that we can actually replicate that, because plenty of the depictions of these ancient gods that we think are aliens, or at least some people think are aliens, are similar, for instance, to experiences during trance state, like transcendental states, or during DMT experiences, ayahuasca, and things like that. And we see that similarities in their depictions can show, okay, so these gods may have been a result of some kind of altered consciousness state, like some kind of trance, or, as I mentioned, some kind of drugs.
Interesting. You said the term a heightened psychic state. That's an interesting idea. That's a pretty cool explanation. I like that.
Yes.
Do you feel that some of the stones that show signs of like such accuracy were done by machines, that they very advanced machines that they had that we just can't find any trace of? And how did they build those machines? Do you believe those existed? I mean, you probably know more about artifacts than I'll ever know. Is there some examples of stones that really, like, wow, blow your mind away?
Yes, there are many. However, also what blown my mind away were a few of the attempts of cutting them, because I've seen, wow, maybe it takes a long time, but you can cut this granite or diorite, very heavy, very hard stones. You can. However, it takes a long time, so you wouldn't build the pyramids in 20 years, most probably. And I think that I am on the middle ground. I would say that yes, there are plenty of out of place things about megalithic structures, pyramids, and how they were constructed, how heavy the blocks were. However, I think that if we have plenty of people, etc., we can do that. But it would take, as I mentioned, maybe 200 years to build a pyramid. However, I would also say maybe being a bit inspired by some kind of channeling visions of Atlantis and stuff like that. That maybe there was also some kind of spiritual technology, paranormal technology that could, as we mentioned, maybe manifesting into world, but maybe, changing the matter. Because imagine if we know the code of the matrix, let's say, if we know the code, like everything, let's say, is coded like in a video game. We can change the code to change the matter. So maybe we can change, of course, metaphorically. Maybe it is not coded in code like in Matrix, but if we can change the information that stands behind that, like information that this is this item or this is this substance, maybe we can change, cut this, or fit the stones together, etc. So I think this may be also a possible explanation.
But I mean,
machines.
Modern engineers state that there's no way they could duplicate many of the rocks that are cut in some of these ancient ruins that are just so amazingly machined with such accuracy that they have no way to do it today. What do you make of those examples?
Yes, I was for very many years I was a proponent of this high machining technology that they couldn't have used anything except for such machines. However, and I research a lot people who are doing stonemasonry nowadays, saying that it is hard, etc. However, these were the wrong people to hear from, because these were the people who were using modern tools and saying it is hard with modern tools to do that. However, there are plenty of, for instance, sculptors in marble, granite who are still using just, hammer and this small thing, primitive technology, and they are doing similar things, for instance, to these great stages of the Renaissance in Rome, Spain, or many other countries. So I think it is possible, but it takes a long, long time. So imagine if you want to perfectly cut a huge, very hard block and, have it very, very ideally, let's say, placed, it would take very, very, very long time. I also seen some videos of people before the technology. Nowadays we have technology in the Western world, but in the Eastern world, in many places 10, 20 years ago, they were still using this primitive technology, and they were able, maybe not to cut perfectly, finish everything to be polished. However, they were able to cut, I would say, very, very accurately. It was beyond, my expectation to see that you can cut.
Okay, so what you're saying is it's a lost art, not a lost machine.
I think that it may be both. That some extra machines that modern history, archaeology, Egyptology does not take into account was used, some kind of technology, I don't know, but maybe it was also about, as you mentioned, the art of doing that, and maybe something, as we mentioned before, extra physical, or maybe all the three together. Heightened psychic states, maybe, having in our mind vision, okay, if I hit the stone here, it will be cut perfectly, because we have a few examples that, if you hit the stone in the perfect place, you can have a really, really nice cut of it. So maybe it was part of the psychic, part of the art, so being very, very, good in that, but also maybe some technology additional that haven't survived to our times. But, it didn't need to be lasers or something, but maybe some kind of extra technology.
Well, what is the most amazing area of the most amazing stones?
It depends, because I love Sacsayhuaman in Peru, so this polygonal mosaic of walls. So it is not only Sacsayhuaman, all the South America, Peru is full. Machu Picchu, Cusco, full of these polygonal walls. So walls made of blocks that are polygonal, so not square-shaped blocks, but with many, many sides, even counting 7, 9, 13, and even more. So this is amazing, because you cannot put knife between them. And there are even some theories that they were melted into fitting perfectly together. Maybe they were some kind of softened using, there is a myth that they used some kind of special plant to soften these stones, but we haven't found it yet. Maybe it is just a myth, who knows. So this is one of the greatest because these blocks are often very, very huge. However, also a huge precision can be found in ancient Egypt. There are plenty of sarcophagi, of course, like this, because I don't think that all of them were sarcophagi. I would say chests or boxes. They are often very, very precisely cut, but in some cases we see, and it may show us that maybe they were using some primitive technology, we see unfinished boxes that have, for instance, were discarded because they cut off too much stone from it. They were cutting, and oops, too much of the stone fell apart. So maybe they were using some kind of casual technology, no, not something very, very extraordinary. However, I would say this too. And in my book, I show that this polygonal wall masonry or architecture can be found all over the world and is considered to be one of the oldest architecture. And I theorize that these are the remnants of previous civilizations like Atlantis. Maybe these were Atlantean buildings, but maybe they were built after Atlantis from the knowledge of this previous civilization or any other civilization, because we see the same masonry, the same architecture, as I mentioned, in Peru, but also on the Easter Island, also in Europe, in Italy, in Greece, in Egypt, and this is almost the same in the Far East, in Japan, China, and many other regions. And there are a few, because we may say, oh, huge blocks, one similarity. No, I found that there are plenty of specific similarities within these architectural things that they point that these were the same people who built them, or people who were having the same knowledge or the same blueprint, but maybe went to different countries, were using different materials. But it is the same with plenty of statues. For instance, the famous Moai statues of Easter Island are having this exaggerated chins and also hands on their belly, but the same statue, exactly the same, I would maybe not exactly, but exaggerated chin and hands on belly, maybe symbolizing giving birth or something, maybe fertility, who knows, but can be found in Göbekli Tepe, one of the oldest sites, megalithic sites in the world. But the same can be found in, for instance, also in Brazil, I think, and somewhere in South America, and in a few other regions all over the world. So if we, okay, one person only exaggerated chin, okay, maybe it happened all over the world. But if we add two examples, like the same figure, exaggerated chin and hands on the belly, and in many places in the world, I think it is beyond coincidence. The same with the megaliths. Okay, right. Polygonal walls, perfect cut, the second one. The third thing would be special knobs, which may be used for transportation, but special knobs which look exactly the same. I would even say, for me or other researchers who are really good in this field, if we give me or them a picture from these sites, but we, for instance, change the colors, no colors, black and white, and a little bit arrange them so they cannot see from which side it happens, plenty of people would be fooled that this is Egypt, no, this is Peru, or vice versa, or Japan, or many other. It is very, very similar.
Steve, well, hang on 1 second, Jeff.
Sure.
Puco is one of the areas that they're claiming that we couldn't even machine, these things, and the machining marks are still there from like some kind of a machine, a mechanical, like a CNC machine. It's so accurate. It had to have been controlled by a computer.
Yes, it is very accurate, and I researched Pumapunku a lot. I even went through old books when there was this initial discovery of Pumapunku, and Tiwanaku. This is actually the same place. However, these blocks here are actually soft, are not that hard as granite or diorite. So this is one thing, and the other thing, if you have some kind of saw, and if you created the saw that was very, very straight, you could have this, because there are some kind of straight edges, there are even drills in it, but still within these soft materials you could drill, because I was into this technology, because from a very young age I was into minerals, rocks. I have there below on my bookshelf plenty of minerals in my collection. So I was very into this topic and I researched it a lot, and you know how they could, and it is possible, it is replicable nowadays, how they can drill these rocks, because we have very, very, very round drills that seem to be very fast. They used some even material like wood with some things. However, they used sand, and sand is 7 on the Mohs scale of quartz. So anything, and even a little bit after sand, can be actually drilled with enough, drilled. It was drilled like you was using a stick and a bow to make a fire. So the same thing here, you have a stick, you have a bow, and you put sand and water, and it is so hard, it is very easy. For instance, if you took something with sand and you polished a rock, it would in some time, of course, be scratched. So the same here, and they are drilling. It takes a long time, but it is possible. But I don't know if it was made like that, but I say that it is possible to recreate these drills.
It could have, so what you're saying is you're open. It could have been created by aliens for all you know, but it is possible humans with primitive tools did it. So Jeff, you had a question.
Well, I hate to bring this up, but we're creeping up on 3 hours.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
So just a few things quick I wanted to say is, one, I bought your book while we've been talking. I actually bought a copy of your book, so I'm looking forward to reading it. 2, your studio setup, your lighting and camera is outstanding. So good job on that. And then
thank you. If you see, now I am a little bit yellow because the sun rose like 30 minutes ago.
No, you look great.
Before that.
Your camera and lighting is outstanding.
Yes,
and then
very professional there.
Very professional.
Alexander.
And then can you please tell us?
It's a digital camera through HDMI and stuff like that.
It's amazing. You look great, and you're on the other side. You're on the other side of the planet. And then also, I don't think we talked about this. Can you please give us the pronunciation of your last name?
Yes,
Czeszkiewicz.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Czeszkiewicz. But
Could
problem.
Never do it.
I don't care that much. So.
Thank you.
I always tell people where they can find me. Copy and paste my surname. Don't try to try or ask or something. Just copy paste and then you'll find me.
Yeah. And then look at his book is available on Amazon. I bought it while we were talking. So
it's hard for me here in Poland
I'm looking forward to it.
Author's copies, so I can send one more, but not right now.
Oh,
but
I bought one already. I'm looking forward to reading it. Thank you. Yeah.
Here in Poland, actually, we do not use Amazon that much, so we're.
Okay. Yeah, I bought it on my Kindle, so it's already on my Kindle. I can't wait to read it. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, you live in a beautiful country with great people.
Yes, Poland's an amazing country.
I guess my last name is Polish and Czechoslovakian, Hajicek.
I think Czechoslovakian.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think here. Let's go ahead and do our wisdom, and then we'll come back real quick.
Okay, be right back. Here we go.
It's time for Untold Radio AM Wisdom of the Week. The general public seems to have a never-ending curiosity to know everything, except what knowledge is worth knowing. Thank you, everyone, from all of us at the Untold Radio Network. Good night.
Okay. All right. So with that, I want to wish everybody a great 4th of July weekend. Don't eat too many hot dogs. Jeff, don't eat too much steak.
I will. I'll eat too much.
Do you guys have a summer celebration in Poland?
But later. I think it's about the Catholic Church. I think 15th of either July or August, something like that. It isn't that heavy like yours, but it is a small holiday still within the summertime.
What's the name of it?
I don't remember because I'm not that into, celebrating this Catholic one, so sorry. But
goodness.
it's about something with, Mary, Jesus.
Oh, okay. Well, you speak amazing English.
Very good
And
English.
Thank
So
you.
already I'm in awe of anybody that knows 2 languages. And you probably know more languages. Is that English? And
Yes, I always liked languages and it was always easy for me. I even translated
Yes.
my book myself into English, and right now, because I'm also publisher of this genre of books in Poland, I'm publishing one book about Atlantis and translating it myself, but
Oh, wow.
giving it for correction to some professionalist later, but translating it from English to Polish. But I also was into ancient languages, and here I've got, for instance, can I show you? I've got something there. I was just little bit, learning Hebrew just to decode these letters, and I actually could transliterate Sanskrit. Not understand because there are plenty of words, grammars. It is heavy. However, I could, this language, this different, this science of Sanskrit, I can transliterate it. I haven't studied it for the last 2 years, but I was good at it, I would say.
That's interesting.
And of course, some Spanish, Russian, and I was 8 years learning German at school. It was compulsory. However, I do not remember much about from that.
It's
Well, thank you
crazy.
so
And do you
much.
mind if I tell everybody before we go how old you are? You're so young.
22 right now.
Yes, jeez. You're very accomplished.
It's impressive.
You have your entire life ahead of you. I can only imagine what you're going to accomplish. You're going to be very, very, very successful because
I
it's
agree.
obvious you work super hard.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very, very obvious. And
That's
with
great. I
that,
love it.
I want to say good night and thanks for everybody in chat. You guys were awesome.
Yeah.
So my experiment worked a little bit. We still had a big crowd.
Yeah.
I'll
What a
check
great
the
show.
numbers.
Great conversation.
Well,
I could talk about this all night.
so I was planning on marketing after the show, just
Yeah.
as an experiment to see what would happen.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so thanks so much, everybody from the Untold Radio Network. We will be back next Wednesday, same place, same time on YouTube and everywhere. And thank you so much, Alexander. You're
Thank you.
amazing. Go get some sleep.
I'm
Thank you.
actually energized from our conversation. Thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Actually, your conversation was very, very engaging, and questions and all the speculation theories. I really enjoyed it. I don't
Okay.
know how these hours went actually by.
Yeah,
so-
we had a
and now
glitch.
the sun is coming.
Yeah, we had a glitch anyhow,
Yeah.
but we'll get you back. We'll get you back.
Yes,
We'd love to
yes.
just have you weigh in on a bunch of all sorts of topics. Tons of them out there. All right. Good night, everybody. Good night,
Thanks,
Jeff. Have a
everybody.
great
Good
weekend.
night.
All right. Good
Yep,
night,
good night.
everybody.
I call you up in the middle of the night. Been bothered by dreams, ain't feeling alright. You give me comfort, say just give it some time. By the end of our talk, I'm feeling just fine. You and I will always know where we belong. This ain't no ordinary love we got going on. I'll pick you up in my 59 Ford. We head on down the road until we get bored. Just you and me and the sun and the wind. If the rain should start falling, we'll head on home again. Everybody else can see where we belong. Oh, ain't no ordinary love we got going on. At the end of the world, together forever is one, and I'll wait. If ever you should be in doubt, and I'll pray they never can pull us apart, and I'll wait for the time when we'll be together every day. But I know if ever we'll be led astray, that I'll find my way back home to you again. if ever you should be in doubt. And I pray they never can pull us apart. And